Chapter 25:18. Miss Song? Which Miss Song? It's your fiancée, Miss Song Inya. Mu Yenqing was stunned for a moment as he muttered inwardly, "What is she doing here at this time? Just tell her that I'm busy and can't meet her." He was currently feeling frustrated and did not want to be disturbed by that woman. Then, the secretary cautiously said, "I'll tell her that you have a meeting to prepare for later." "Yes, just say that." The secretary then retreated respectfully. Unexpectedly, a few minutes later, the sound of high heels clicking could be heard from outside the door. Without knocking, Song Inya pushed the door open and rushed in. She said rudely, "Meeting? What meeting is so important that even I can't be seen?" Mu Yenqing raised his head and frowned, looking displeased. "Didn't I say that I'm busy now? Can't you wait until I'm off work? Do you have to avoid me like this? Could it be that, in your eyes, I'm some kind of scourge?" Annoyed, Mu Yenqing turned his face away and refused to look at her. "I have something to talk to you about." "What is it that you have to talk about in the office?" "We only talk about business in the office and not private matters." She was instantly enraged when she heard this and took a step forward agitatedly. "Mu Yenqing, what kind of attitude is this? Listen to me carefully." Song Enya's words came to an abrupt halt as her gaze landed on the scattered papers on the floor. Curiously, she walked forward and picked up one of them, only to see Meng Qingshua's photo on it. It was actually information about Meng Qingxue. Her heart skipped a beat as she felt extremely humiliated. What is this for? Could it be that this man sent people to look for me? Song Enya skimmed through the documents and, in shock, picked up a few more. Glancing through them, she was surprised to find that the investigation had included the hospital. Hospital? What kind of situation would require them to investigate the hospital? Could it be? Song Inya immediately thought of a possibility. This woman is pregnant. Pregnant? Then, isn't this woman a big threat to me? To rich families, a woman's birth was not the biggest threat. The biggest threat came from the child in her stomach. She had plenty of means to make it difficult for this woman to step into the Mu family for the rest of her life. However, the child in her stomach might not be. If she was pregnant and gave birth to the child, once Mu Yenqing found the child and brought it back to the Mu family, the most terrifying thing was that if the child in her stomach was a boy, the threat to her would be infinitely increased. "She's pregnant?" Song Inya questioned her with the document in her hand. "Is she pregnant with your child?" Her words were aggressive and extremely sharp. Mu Yenqing was extremely displeased with the way she was questioning him. It was as if she were interrogating a criminal. Therefore, when he spoke, his tone was not that friendly. "My matters have nothing to you. You are my fiancé. How can your matters have nothing to do with me?" Chapter 25:19. With that, she took a step forward and ordered, "You must abort the child in her womb. Who are you to question the Mu family's child? How can you abort it just like that?" Song Inya originally thought that with her strong tone and attitude, he would definitely compromise a little in front of her. Unexpectedly, he gave her an order back. "No." "What?" She laughed in anger. "Mu Yenqing, don't tell me you're planning to wait for this woman to give birth to the child, and then bring this unknown B***RD back to the Mu family. Unknown B***ST**RD. He sneered and retorted, "How can it be an unknown B***RD? The blood of the Mu family is not a B***RD. The child in her womb is my flesh and blood. It's my seed. It's not up to you to decide whether this child stays or goes. Are you so sure that this B***ST**RD is yours?" Song Inya provoked him in an extremely sinister manner. "Meng Qingxue is a young model. Do you think she's that pure in the filthy entertainment industry? Do you think she's that innocent? Who knows if she's been entangled with other men behind your back? I heard that her circle is very messy. She can sleep for a few nights with just a few tens of thousands of yuan. How can you be so sure that the child in her stomach is yours?" Mu Yenqing was thoroughly provoked by her. He slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Pointing at her nose, he rebuked, "I've said it before. You have no right to interfere in my affairs. Besides, you're not married yet, so you're not considered a member of the Mu family. What right do you have to tell me what to do?" Song Inya, Haven't you figured out your identity yet? Song Inya was about to retort when someone knocked on the door again. Mu Yanqing was annoyed and bellowed. Who is it? It's me. A calm voice came from outside the door. Come in. Just as he finished speaking, the door was pushed open and Minyu, who was dressed casually, walked into the office with a stack of reports in his hand. Mu Yanqing looked at him and asked coldly, What's the matter? Master Yanqing. Mu Yanqing cut him off coldly. Are you blind? Didn't you see Mu Group's announcement today? From today onwards, I am officially the CEO of Disheng. According to the rules, you should call me Chairman Mu. In the Mu Group we have to be clear about etiquette, and we have to be clear about who is superior and who is inferior. Minyu shot him a frosty look. Instead of his usual suit, he was dressed in casual attire today. He walked up to Mu Yanqing and nonchalantly tossed a stack of reports on the table. Mu Yanqing glared at him and then followed his action to look at the reports on the table. He asked quizzically, What's this? This is my resignation letter. The Human Resource Department said that my resignation letter needs your approval. After saying that, he put on a nonchalant expression, and his gaze was light and indifferent. Young Master Yanqing, I've said before that the day you officially succeed your position will be the day I leave the Mu Group. I'm here to ask for your resignation. Chapter 25:20. Minyu looked at him with indifference. There was not a hint of reluctance on his face. It was not that he did not have any feelings for the Mu Group. From the day he became Mu Yaja's special assistant, he had sworn that he would not leave this place unless the Mu Group collapsed. However, since Mu Yaja was no longer with the company, there was no point for him to stay. His loyalty had never been for the Mu Group. It was only for Mu Yaja. Song Inya was also stunned. She was no stranger to Minyu. When she first met him, he was merely an administrative assistant by Mu Yaja's side. He was the confidant whom the latter had promoted all the way to the top. He was loyal to Mu Yaja, so she was not surprised to see him resign. Mu Yanqing glared fiercely at his assistant. After sizing him up, he suddenly sneered and said contemptuously, Mu Yaja, you've raised a loyal and good dog. Minyu did not seem to take his blatant humiliation to heart. Instead, he said expressionlessly, It doesn't matter if he's a good dog or not. Even a dog will recognize its master. Besides, a good dog will only recognize a good master. Without waiting for Minyu to finish, Mu Yanqing continued coldly, What if I refuse to sign this report? Minyu said unhurriedly, Then, I'll unilaterally terminate my contract with your company. Mu Yanqing's eyes widened in surprise. With a look of disbelief, he laughed in anger. What did you say? It doesn't matter if you sign this contract or not. If you don't sign it, you'll be dealt with according to your company's rules and regulations. Any employee of the Mu Group who is absent from work for 5 days will be dealt with accordingly. After saying that, Minyu paused and nodded elegantly. With a smile he said, Young Master Yanqing, I'll take my leave now. With a faint smile, he turned around expressionlessly and walked toward the door without looking back. He did not seem to care about Mu Yanqing's ashen face as he turned to leave. Mu Yanqing's face instantly turned red. No matter how elegant he was, he could not maintain his composure at this moment. He growled, Stop right there. Did I say you could leave? Unexpectedly, Minyu didn't even turn his head. It was as if he didn't hear him at all. He opened the door and left. Bang! The door slammed shut with a loud bang. The muscles on Mu Yanqing's face twitched for a moment. His gaze was sinister and ferocious as he gritted his teeth and turned around. Glancing at the resignation letter on the table, he picked it up abruptly, tore it into shreds, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it into the trash can. Song Inya watched his every move and let out a long snort before saying, Mu Yanqing, you haven't answered my question yet. What are you going to do with that Meng Qingxue? At this moment, she was still angry because of what had happened to Meng Qingxue. She initially thought that she was just a woman who was clinging on to Mu Yanqing. She had experienced how flirtatious the man could be. She was also aware that this man had many women outside. Some were models, some were from the entertainment industry, and some were even students. However, this was not the most infuriating thing. What was more infuriating was that after Meng Qingxue left under her instigation, Mu Yanqing actually went to great lengths to find her. What did this mean? This meant that Mu Yanqing valued Meng Qingxue very much. Chapter 25-21. A man who had always been a womanizer was actually pursuing a woman who had disappeared without a trace. This was definitely not purely because that woman was pregnant with his child. She was also pregnant. She was also pregnant with his child, and she was certain that it was a boy. However, Mu Yanqing did not care about her at all from the start. He did not even care about her at all. What about Meng Qingxue though? Mu Yanqing was secretly looking for that woman's whereabouts behind her back. She would never allow such a thing to happen. Mu Yanqing did not immediately respond to her doubts, but Song Enya did not have the patience to wait for his reply. Suddenly, she walked over expressionlessly and faced him. Mu Yanqing, let me tell you. I have my bottom line too. Don't think that the Song family can be bullied just because it's a little down now. Let me tell you. Since I'm your fiancé and married to you, then Meng Qingxue is not allowed to exist. No matter where she goes, you're not allowed to look for her whereabouts. If you still care about my feelings, I'll have to trouble you to quietly kill the child in her womb. I, Song Enya, am not that easy to bully. Mu Yanqing suddenly laughed eerily and said coldly, Song Enya, you're really naive. Do you think that you have the right to control me just because you're my fiancé in name? Dream on. What? Song Enya looked sullen. Mu Yanqing, I control you. I'm controlling you. I'm just defending my rights as your future wife. I'm protecting my legal rights. Mu Yanqing immediately interrupted her impatiently. We haven't even collected our marriage certificate, so how can it be legal? You? Besides, what I hate the most is the way you talk about your selfishness as if it's the most righteous thing you've ever done. Mu Yanqing paused for a moment before continuing. You can't tolerate Qingxue because you're worried that her existence will threaten your position as the Mu family's young madam. You don't have to worry about this at all. Here, I want to tell you that regardless of whether Meng Qingxue is here or not, whether you can find her or not, in my heart, you are not even worthy of carrying her shoes. In my heart, you're not even fit to carry her shoes. Upon hearing that, Song Enya felt as if her heart had received a heavy blow. It was as if a sharp needle had pierced her chest, causing her to feel excruciating pain. Her face turned as pale as white wax. Her lips trembled for a while and she took a quick breath. She gritted her teeth and asked, Not even fit to carry his shoes? Mu Yanqing, do you really mean it? Mu Yanqing snorted disapprovingly as his lips curled into a mocking smile. Do you think I'm joking with you? Or do you think I'm as hypocritical as you? With that, he ignored her and instructed the new assistants. Clean this place up. I have something to do and need to go out. He had promoted 2 of his confidants to be his assistants the moment he took office. It had to be said that Mu Yaja was very arrogant and powerful. Mu Yaja only had Minyu by his side, but he felt that one was not enough. Since he was now the supreme leader of the Mu group, he needed at least 5 assistants by his side to reflect his aura. Chapter 25-22. Seeing that he was about to leave, Song Enya chased after him and tried to tug at his sleeve. Where are you going? Mu Yanqing did not even look at her as he flung her hand away. Song Enya was furious and shouted hysterically, Stop right there! Mu Yanqing turned around abruptly and glared at her fiercely. Song Enya, I'm warning you, we're in the company now. You must remember your place and don't act like a crazy woman. You'll embarrass the Mu and Song families. Song Enya was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down. Her eyes were red and swollen. Ever since she became pregnant, her emotions were easily out of control. She was no longer as calm and stable as before and often had hysterical outbursts. She forced herself to calm down and suddenly asked in a trembling voice, Mu Yanqing, do you treat me as your fiancé or not? Of course. Mu Yanqing's voice was cold. You're my fiancé. This is an undeniable fact. Since I've acknowledged you, I won't deny your value. Then what right do you have to treat me like this? Song Enya widened her eyes as tears streamed down her cheeks. Why was it so difficult to find a man who would dote on her? First it was Mu Yaja. Now it was Mu Yanqing. None of them had ever cared about her. Only God knew how jealous she was of Yun Shishir to be doted on like that. What about her? For a single favor she felt like she was a beggar pitifully begging for pity, but what she got in return was still disdain. Song Inya could not figure it out. She questioned him word by word. What right do you have? What right do you have to care so much about a lowly woman? Mu Yanqing was silent for a while. Suddenly, Meng Qingshue's voice and face appeared in his mind. He recalled the times when she lay aggrievedly on his chest and would occasionally throw a tantrum willfully. At that time he felt that this woman was very much like a child, adorable and arrogant. He recalled that when he was unwell, she took care of him day and night, staying by his bedside and taking good care of him. At that time, he felt the radiance of motherhood and maturity from her. Mu Yanqing could not help curling his lips into a smile as he calmly said, "Based on the fact that she treats me wholeheartedly, she'll never scheme against me like you did." With that, he pushed the door open and left without another look at the Missy. Song Enya stood rooted to the ground in a daze, suddenly having an epiphany. It turned out that this man probably still hadn't gotten over the fact that she had schemed against him and used him. She fell to the ground in a daze as she stared blankly in the direction where Mu Yanqing had left. Tears fell silently from her eyes. With Mu Linfeng's support, Mu Yanqing's promotion was a matter of course. Mu Linfeng was extremely prestigious in the Mu family. After Mu Yaja left the Mu group, his words carried the most weight in the family. On the night before the announcement was made, Mu Yanqing tossed and turned restlessly in bed. His heart was heavy, and he was so agitated and uneasy that he could not fall asleep. Perhaps it was because he felt that the good thing he had been dreaming of all this time had come too suddenly that he could not help but doubt the authenticity of this matter. He even wondered if he was having a long and sweet dream. Once his sweet dream was shattered and he woke up from it, the Mu family would still be under Mu Yaja's control. Chapter 25-23. Perhaps this was not a dream, but in his imagination, the succession ceremony would probably not be carried out successfully. Someone would definitely make things difficult for him. However, on this day, the succession ceremony was held as scheduled. During the shareholders' meeting, he officially became the new president of the Mu Group, under the witness of all the important members of the Mu family and the senior shareholders of the company. After the meeting, he walked into his office. The originally luxurious CEO's office had been cleaned up to look brand new, and the name tag on the table had been replaced with his name. It was only then that an indescribable heat surged from his chest like a dream. He had finally gotten what he wanted. He had become the real head of the Mu Group. He knew very well that, although he was the head of the company on the surface, the real power was still in the hands of Mu Linfeng. However, there was no hurry in this matter. Mu Linfeng's body was no longer as strong as it used to be. When he was no longer around, the real power would return to him, would it not? He was finally at ease. With this, he could finally satisfy the surging desire in his heart. He did not sit in the office for long. Instead, he left the office to patrol the employees' area. As he walked through the rows of employees' work areas, the gazes of the elites in suits and leather shoes that he met changed from the initial disdain and suspicion to the current reverence and subservience. He could feel the eagerness and flattery on the faces of the employees wherever he looked. This was probably the charm of power, right? Everyone would bow down to him and respect him. No one dared to disobey his will. Therefore, many people in the Mu family wanted to climb up the ladder by hook or by crook. They coveted this position for no other reason than to stand at the peak and be worshipped and looked up to by everyone. Standing at the peak, one would realize that when one looked down at them, everyone would be as insignificant as a speck of dust or an ant. He seemed to be able to flatten them at will. He had waited so long for this moment. Now he finally got what he wanted. At the thought of this, Mu Yanqing wanted to laugh out loud without restraint, but his rationality restrained him from doing so. In the end, he managed to maintain his composure as he returned to the CEO's office. After the Mu Group stock market plunged, although there were doubts about Mu Yanqing's succession, most of them regarded him as their savior. However, many senior and elite employees did not have much confidence in Mu Yanqing. If it was in the past, when Mu Yaja was in charge of the Mu Group, none of the financial groups in the world could compete with the Mu Group. However, things were different now. Mu Yaja left the Mu Group and took over the position of president of the Shengyu Financial Group with great fanfare. He made a beautiful comeback with great fanfare. Now he was ambitious and rapidly rising in power. He had become the leader of the Xinqiu Financial Group. This was simply a miracle. Apart from Wuxia, no one else would be able to create such a miracle. The Shengyu Financial Group, the existence that the Mu Group loved and hated, was now the biggest enemy of the Mu Group. Chapter 25-24. The reason why they said they loved and hated him was because the person in charge of Shengyu was the leader of the Mu Group, whom they had always respected and looked up to. What they hated was that every time Shengyu made a move, it was undoubtedly to destroy the Mu Group's future. The ruthlessness of his moves was jaw-dropping. Mu Linfeng once thought pessimistically that the will of this chess piece had finally recovered. From now on, he was probably light years away from the end of his era. Perhaps there would never be an end to it. This was because he knew very well that his son, Yun Tianyu, was not a kind person and was not of his kind. At such a young age, he had already made a name for himself. His future was simply incredible. Checkmate. In the hotel suite, Yu placed his chess piece down with the conceit of a victor on his face. Wuxia furrowed his brows and looked at the proud little lad opposite him. He heard Yu say smugly and disdainfully, "Daddy, you've lost again. TSK. You have to admit that you're old." This lad was asking for a beating. How dare he tease his old man? Could he leave him some face? Yun Shishir was watching the game from the side with Xiaoqin in her arms. When she saw the final result, she was not surprised and laughed out loud. "Hubby, you're no match for Yu at all." That's right. Daddy, you should give up struggling. Yu is the back wave and you're the front wave. He has already knocked you down to the beach." Wuxia glared at him, and the latter immediately shut up. He threw himself into Yun Shishir's arms aggrievedly and called out pitifully, "Mommy, Daddy is scolding me again." Yu said earnestly, "Daddy, don't be unwilling to admit defeat. Give up struggling. Your chess skills are not as good as mine." Wuxia said awkwardly, "I haven't played in a long time. I'm a little rusty." "Don't make excuses for your failure." Yu educated him seriously. "Even if you lose, you have to admit defeat gracefully. That's what a gentleman is." Wuxia gritted his teeth at her words. Oh my God. He really wanted to beat this kid up. Asking for a beating. All right. It's getting late. Yun Shishir looked at the sky outside the window. It was 10 p.m. in Prague. It was time to rest early. We still have to fly to Italy tomorrow. Yu immediately hugged Yun Shishir and said coquettishly, "I want to sleep with Mommy." Xiaoqin immediately hugged Yun Shishir, unwilling to let go. "I want to sleep with Mommy too." Wuxia walked over, pinched each of them by their ears and pulled them away. "Sleep on your own. Don't hoard my woman." This domineering declaration was very much his style. Yun Shishir's lips twitched. Every night, the father-son trio would fight over her as scheduled. Yu and Xiaoqin would fight to sleep with her. But in the end, Wuxia would kick them away in disdain. Yu and Xiaoqin covered their ears and complained bitterly. "Daddy is bullying us. Pinching ears is domestic violence. We want to protest. When I was your age, I was already independent. Why are you so clingy?" Humph. The two little kids snorted in unison and looked at him with disdain. Yu suddenly said, "Forget it. Muichin, we won't stoop to his level." With that, he held Muichin's hand and strode out of the room. He did not even look back. He was very suave. Chapter 25-25. You're spoiling them too much. Wuxia was still in a bad mood. After all, he had lost 3 rounds to his son in less than 10 minutes. Naturally, he would not be in a good mood. "They're a little clingy," Wuxia said. "Quickly get them to find a wife. That way they won't have to stick to my wife." Yun Shishir's eyes twitched. "Are you serious? Why, they're only 7 years old. Was he looking for a child bride?" Yun Shishir suddenly walked over to the sofa, sat down beside him and hugged his shoulders. "Today, the director called to ask when I'll be returning to the set. It seems that the wedding photoshoot has delayed some time. I only applied for 5 days off, but I didn't expect the schedule to be so tight. 5 days isn't enough." Wuxia gently stroked her hair and said unhurriedly, "There's no need to rush back to the set since the filming is going on. After all, the wedding photoshoot is more important than filming. Then is your schedule tight? Yun Shirshir asked worriedly. Your schedule should be even tighter than mine. Xingyu is still waiting for you to rush back to take charge, right? I've made arrangements in advance. If there's anything, Jinyu will take care of it. Oh. Yun Shirshir pondered for a moment before suddenly saying, I saw the news today. Mu Yanqing has officially taken over the position of Dishing Financial Group's CEO. Do you know about this? Mu Yaja appeared indifferent. It's not something to be concerned about. I'm worried that the Mu Group will make a bold move against Xingyu Financial Group and launch a series of counterattacks. The business world is filled with gunpowder all the time. There's no difference whether there's one more enemy or one less. Besides, Mu Linfeng is now in charge of the Mu family. They're already at their wits' end. You, on the other hand, don't have to worry so much. Mu Yaja lowered his head and could not help but give her a light peck on the lips. Then he smiled and said, You're here for the wedding photoshoot. Why are you worrying about this and that? I'm worried for you. I know what I'm doing. If I'm not confident, I won't act. Since I've left Mu Group, I'm confident that I can trample Mu Group under my feet. After he finished speaking, he looked at her face and his gaze became gentler. Under the light, her beautiful face was bright and beautiful. His heart was moved by her moving eyes and he couldn't help but move closer to her. His thin lips covered her delicate lips and kissed her charmingly. But there was a hidden ambition. Under the gentleness, it was as if he wanted to swallow her into his stomach like a tiger eyeing its prey. Yun Shirshir followed her instincts and responded to his kiss. He suddenly picked her up and walked towards the bed. The next day there was a 9 a.m. flight to Italy. This was the last part of the wedding photoshoot schedule. It was also Yun Shirshir's most anticipated destination, Italy. As she waited to board the plane, she was filled with anticipation. They arrived at the airport as scheduled. After arriving in Italy, they got into the car specially sent by the hotel to pick them up. However, halfway through the journey, the road was suddenly congested. For some reason, the traffic in Italy was convenient and there were rarely traffic jams, but now it was so congested that it was difficult to move half a meter. Mu Yaja glanced at his watch, looking extremely displeased. He then asked in fluent Italian, Why is there a traffic jam? Chapter 25-26. The driver was surprised because Mu Yaja's Italian was too fluent. If it wasn't for his handsome face, he would have thought that he was a native of Italy. Honorable sir, I'm not sure either. We've been stuck in traffic for 5 minutes. What's going on in front? Mu Yaja suddenly said to the hotel manager in the front passenger seat. Go down and see what's going on. Yes, sir. The blonde hotel manager immediately got out of the car and walked forward to investigate the situation. Yun Shirshir sat in the back seat. After waiting for a long time in the traffic jam, she couldn't help but feel a little sleepy and yawned a few times. Mu Yaja glanced at her and asked, Sleepy? Yeah, a little. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but blush. She complained, Didn't you not rest well last night? This energetic man had tormented her until midnight before he finally stopped. She didn't know where he got his strong physical strength from. He slept later than her, but he was still full of energy and didn't look tired at all. Or was it because her stamina was too weak? Her physical fitness wasn't bad, but compared to this inhuman, it wasn't worth mentioning. Mu Yaja couldn't help but smirk. He asked, Are you blaming me? Yun Shirshir's face turned even redder. She said angrily, Who else can I blame if not you? It's all your fault. You were very passionate last night. You wanted it so much. I was just trying to satisfy you. Mu Yaja said righteously. Yun Shirshir's face was so red that it was about to bleed. She couldn't help but say angrily, What do you mean? What do you mean I was passionate to? It was clearly you. Mu Yaja saw that she was hesitating to speak. Her expression was incomparably bashful, as if she was too embarrassed to say anything. He could not help but want to hear it. He inched closer to her and pressed on. It's clearly me. What about me? I'm not talking about it. Why aren't you talking about it? Mu Yaja teased her on purpose. It's clearly me. What's wrong with that? Yun Shirshir glared at him coquettishly. What do you mean what happened? How could such a man force her? He was clearly trying to tease her and embarrass her. Last night it was clear that he wanted more and more, as if it wasn't enough. There were several times when she begged for mercy, wanted to stop, protested repeatedly, and expressed that she was tired. However, he didn't know fatigue and worked hard on her body, tormenting her until she felt like her entire body was about to fall apart. In the end, she collapsed on the bed in exhaustion. Her entire body went limp, and in the end she could not move at all. Wasn't it all because of him? How was she supposed to say these words? Yun Shirshir glared at him again and again, her heart full of resentment. Wuxia silently cursed in his heart. If he didn't work harder to sow the seeds, where would the daughter he longed for come from? He wholeheartedly hoped that her belly would be able to work harder and give birth to a little princess for him. Only then did he put this matter into practice. This man was the most black-bellied. He knew that this woman would take certain contraceptive measures and would take pills before doing it. Hence, he tampered with her long-acting contraceptive pills and replaced the pills in the box with folic acid. Chapter 25-27. This stupid girl was still kept in the dark until now. Wuxia couldn't help but want to laugh when he imagined the day when she realized that she was pregnant and holding the diagnosis report in her hand. However, he held it in. Besides, he had some selfish motives. If she was pregnant, she would have no reason to continue working in the entertainment industry. When the time came, he would set up an entertainment company for her to manage. When she was in a good mood, she would take on a few good scripts. It would be very relaxing. Although his methods were a little despicable, this woman didn't cooperate. The hotel manager returned quickly and got into the car. He said to Wuxia, "Sir, I went to check on the situation. There was an accident and 2 cars collided." "Car accident?" "Yes, it was a collision. The police are on their way. The road will be clear soon." Wuxia nodded and gently pulled Yun Shirshir into his arms. He asked gently, "Are you tired?" "Yes, a little. I'm just afraid that the 2 little guys are tired from the flight. The hotel sent 2 cars to pick them up." Yu and Muichin sat in the car behind. At this moment they were most likely dozing off. The road was clear again. The car moved slowly. When they passed by the scene, they saw a Bentley and a Maserati colliding. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but take another look. By the side of the road, a woman with brown hair and black eyes was standing face to face with a uniformed police officer. They seemed to be cooperating with the investigation. The woman had an Eastern face. She was exquisite and beautiful, especially her eyes. They were as delicate as a painting. Her willow leaf-like eyebrows were gentle and reserved. Nowadays, very few people drew such eyebrows. Most of the people had a Korean-style unibrow, but few people were interested in willow eyebrows. However, this woman was very suitable for willow eyebrows. It made her almond-shaped eyes charming. She had a high nose bridge and pink cherry lips. Her facial features might not be shockingly exquisite if they were separated separately, but when put together, they were extremely harmonious and beautiful. Moreover, they were extremely recognizable and unforgettable. Perhaps it was because she was particularly interested in beautiful things. For some reason, Yun Shirshir paid special attention to her and couldn't help but glance at her. The woman seemed a little annoyed and frustrated. She raised her hand to look at her watch and subconsciously glanced up. The car sent by the hotel to pick her up brushed past her. For some reason, she couldn't help but glance at the car window. The car window was rolled down. Therefore, he could see the person sitting in the back seat at a glance. The woman's face suddenly stiffened and her gaze paused for a moment. Immediately after, an extremely surprised and suspicious expression surfaced on her face. She couldn't help but chase after the car for a few steps. When she clearly saw the man sitting in the back seat of the car, she was shocked and couldn't help but take a step forward. She was wearing high heels, but she didn't seem to care at all as she chased after the car. Yun Shirshir had already retracted her gaze, but when she looked up, she saw in the rearview mirror that the exquisite-looking woman was chasing after the car. She was waving her hands, and her hair was messed up by the wind. Her red lips were slightly open as if she was shouting something. However, sitting in the car, she couldn't hear anything at all. Yun Shirshir muttered in puzzlement. "That's weird. Why is this woman chasing after the car?" Chapter 25-28. Wuxia raised his eyebrows and did not catch her muttering. "What?" There's a woman chasing after our car. Yun Shirshir then added. It's really strange. I don't know if she's mistaken me for someone else. Hearing this, Muyaja looked in the rearview mirror too. The woman was nowhere to be seen. There's no one. It can't be. I saw her chasing after us just now. Yun Shirshir looked at the rearview mirror curiously, but the woman was nowhere to be seen. Maybe she's not chasing after us. As she spoke, she gently rested her head on his shoulder. The car sped away at lightning speed. Miss, are you okay? On the road, the brown-haired woman lay on the ground and looked at the back view of the car. She bit her lip and hit the ground hard. She was a little angry. Coincidentally, she was wearing high heels today. Running all the way here, she sprained her ankle in a panic. She fell heavily on the ground. She panicked and wanted to chase after the car, but it was already far away. She only remembered the car plate number. She propped herself up slowly and stood up slightly. There was a graze on her knee and a layer of skin on her heel had been scraped off by the edge of her high heels. The police officer ran up and helped her up. Are you okay? I'm fine. It's just a graze. As the woman spoke, she raised her head and smiled at him. Officer, can I trouble you to check a license plate number for me? This. The police officer looked hesitant. If it was an ordinary person who made such a request, he would definitely reject it firmly. However, the woman in front of him was the ambassador of Country Z's embassy in Italy. Her father was a well-known Chinese entrepreneur in Italy and her mother was the chief diplomat of the embassy. She had a prominent background. It was not easy to reject her request. The woman smiled at him and said politely, "Thank you, officer." When the car arrived at the hotel, the bellman carried the luggage into the room. Muyaja and Yun Shirshir carried Mui Chen and Yu into the luxurious suite. The two little fellows did not wake up even when they were held in the arms of the two people. After such a long journey, they were already exhausted. Lying on the two people's shoulders, they closed their eyes and fell asleep. Muyaja deliberately did not wake them up. They had flown all the way from Prague to Italy. Besides the time difference, they were exhausted. Anyway, they did not have any plans for the night. Muyaja planned to settle the two little guys down before going to the opera with Yun Shirshir. Italian opera was world famous. Yun Shirshir had been thinking about it for a long time. As a husband, how could he not fulfill his wife's small wish? After entering the hotel, Muyaja carried the two little guys to the bed. During this time, Yu woke up once and struggled to get up. However, Muyaja saw that he was very sleepy and coaxed him back to sleep. Taking advantage of the time when the two little guys finally stopped sleeping, he made love with her again. After the romantic moment, he carried her to the shower room and served her a warm and hot bath. After she was done, Yun Shirshir took the hairdryer to him and said coquettishly, "Help me dry my hair." Okay. He would not reject any request that could be fulfilled. Chapter 25-29. He took the hairdryer and had just turned it on when he heard the doorbell ringing. Ding dong. Ding dong. Yun Shirshir looked out the door in surprise and asked with a strange expression, "Who is it?" "It's probably room service." "Yeah." Muyaja winked at her mysteriously. "I've prepared a candlelight dinner just for you." Yun Shirshir was stunned for a while and said shyly, "It's so romantic. I'll go get the door. Wait for me here." Muyaja hugged her and kissed her cheek before turning to leave the shower room. Yun Shirshir picked up the hairdryer and blew herself dry. Her heart was as sweet as honey. This man really knew how to be romantic sometimes. Time and time again he surprised her. From the proposal to the engagement, and now to the wedding photoshoot, this originally rigid and dull man seemed to have been enlightened overnight. The romantic cells in his body seemed to have been revived, and he knew how to flirt with her occasionally. This was a huge improvement. Just as she was immersed in the romantic fantasy of a candlelight dinner, she suddenly realized that he had taken too long to open the door. Curious about the candlelight dinner, she put down the hairdryer and tiptoed out of the shower room. However, just as she walked to the entrance, she saw a scene that made her freeze. Muyaja, dressed in a black bathrobe, stood at the door with his back facing her. In front of him was a brown-haired woman who had thrown herself into his embrace. Her arms were tightly wrapped around his waist. Her fingers were long and slender, but due to the tight embrace, her knuckles had turned white. Wuxia finally came to his senses after being in a daze for a long time. He frowned and took a while to realize who the woman in his arms was. They had not seen each other for a long time, and he couldn't even call out her full name. In his hazy memory, the girl's warm and clear face floated to his mind. He couldn't help but follow his memory and silently said a name. Xian. Brother Zhe. The woman buried her face in his chest, and a warm current flowed down along the lines of his muscles. I miss you so much, the woman cried emotionally. I thought that I would never be able to see you again in this life. Hearing this, Wuxia's expression changed. Suddenly, the corners of his lips curled up, and he couldn't help but sigh dotingly. Silly. Haven't we met? Yun Shishir's face stiffened. She didn't know how to deal with such a situation. Who was this woman? He heard her call him Brother Zhe and he called her Xian. Could it be that they already knew each other? However, why did she feel that this woman's attitude towards him was somewhat unusual? Yun Shishir looked at her hands that were tightly wrapped around his waist. Only when the woman raised her head and saw her familiar face did Yun Shishir realize who this woman was. Isn't that the brown-haired woman from this afternoon? Because her facial features were very unique and beautiful, it was unforgettable. She had a head of brown hair that made her look pure and sweet. Her palm-sized oval face was fair, and she had on light and elegant makeup. It wasn't too bright, but it was fresh and refined. It was just right. How could she forget that this was the woman who had chased after their car? Chapter 25-30. Could it be that he saw an old friend in the car at first glance? A dinner car was parked beside the woman, and the candlelight on it was constantly swaying. It was romantic and charming. Contrasting with their backs, she felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart. Yun Shishir suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She called out softly, "Honey." Wuxia's back stiffened. He suddenly came back to his senses and gently pushed the woman away. Yun Shishir noticed that his movements were gentle and soft, as if he was afraid that it would be too abrupt. It could be seen that although he was unprepared for the woman's sudden hug, he did not reject it. Her heart suddenly fell to the bottom of the valley. The doubts in her heart were infinitely magnified. He turned around and saw her. He immediately walked up to her and said in a deep voice, "Why are you out in a bathrobe? Aren't you cold? I saw you open the door for so long and didn't come in, so I was a little worried. Go in first and come out after you change." Yun Shishir did not respond to him immediately. Instead, she looked at the woman at the door in confusion. This is... Wuxia turned around and glanced at the woman standing at the door, who looked a little uneasy. Under the woman's smiling gaze, he said softly, "An old friend." "An old friend?" "Yes, Rongxian. She immigrated to Italy when she was 12. Wuxia paused, hugged Yun Shishir, and introduced her to the woman. Xian, let me introduce you. This is my wife, Yun Shishir." "This is my wife, Yun Shishir." She noticed that his tone and adjectives were intimate, gentle, and affectionate. In a way that made her jealous and envious, he introduced the unidentified woman beside him to her. "Wife. Is he married?" "Wife." She had thought that at his age, he would not be married. When Rongxian heard this unfamiliar word, she staggered slightly and almost lost the smile on her face. Her eyes, which had been full of anticipation, were now full of disappointment. She had thought that this woman was his woman. Women are different from wives. There were countless possibilities for women. They were born out of love, but they had nothing to do with love. However, the identity of his wife was different. Based on her understanding of this man, his wife represented the woman he had chosen in his long life. When she first saw the man sitting in the back seat in the afternoon, her mind went blank for a second. Before her brain could react, her body had already made a conditioned reflex action. She couldn't help but start walking and chase after the car. Wuxia originally, she thought that this name would fade away from her life. However, in this unexpected encounter, she inadvertently saw that mature and shockingly handsome face. No matter how many years passed, it still could not wash away that handsome face that was deeply engraved in her memory. The adoration that was hidden in his heart was something that he had purposely tried not to think about and tried to forget. However, as they met again, Countless burning emotions suddenly surged in his chest. That adoration was revived once again. Madness. Wuxia. This name was the most unforgettable memory of her childhood. Chapter 2531. Using the car plate number that she had memorized, she quickly found out his whereabouts and chased him all the way to the hotel. However, she bumped into the candlelight banquet that was being delivered. The moment the waiter knocked on the door, she stood at the door. The long wait and nervousness made her feel a little helpless. She had originally thought that she would probably never see him again in this lifetime. However, this unexpected encounter made her believe that it was a fated meeting and fate. Therefore, she chased after him regardless of the consequences. With a burning passion, the moment the door opened, she pounced on him and tightly hugged his lean body that she hadn't seen in a long time, refusing to let go. Brother Zha. The memory of his youth, she called softly, trying to rouse his distant memory. The hand that was about to push her away suddenly froze. She knew that this man had recognized her. Oh my God. He still hadn't forgotten her. This realization made her jump with joy. However, just as happiness surged in her heart, the next second, it was completely shattered by this introduction. This is my wife. What a formal introduction. The dream that had been surging in her heart was completely shattered because of this introduction. However, such a line was extremely in line with this man's style of doing things. He was swift and decisive, never dragging his feet. Once he had set his mind on something, he would be stubborn to the end. This man was very smart, so smart that it was unsettling. From just now, she had felt the change in this man's expression. From the initial confusion to the gradual realization, and then to the final smile and acceptance. However, vaguely, he still maintained a distance from her. This estrangement was due to his deep understanding of his current identity. He was a man with a family, a wife and children whom he loved dearly, and a blissful life. Therefore, no matter from which angle, he would always maintain a gentlemanly distance from women. At the same time, he seemed to be eager to announce Yun Shirshir's identity, in order to cut off the feelings that she shouldn't have for him. She sighed again. This man was too smart, too sharp. He seemed to have sensed her feelings that she couldn't let go of. Therefore, when she was full of joy, he smiled and introduced his wife in a gentlemanly manner, as if to draw a line between them. Xianxian, when you grow up, I'll marry you, okay? Xianxian, I like you. Let's be together forever. The promise of childhood sweetheart still echoed in her ears. The young man's solemn vow seemed to still ring in her ears. However, more than 10 years had passed and things had changed. At this moment, there was another unfamiliar woman standing beside him, and it was obvious that he loved her very much. Did he tell this woman about the vow that he had once made to her? Thinking of this, Rongxian couldn't help but bite her lips hard. Those speculations were like needles piercing into her heart, corroding it to the point where it was almost unbearable. She had chased after him without a second thought. He already had his own happiness. She couldn't help but hate herself. Why didn't she look for him back then? But at the same time, she was annoyed with him. Why hadn't he come looking for her after so long? If she missed him, would be a lifetime. He couldn't accept it. She suddenly felt very unwilling, but she had no reason to convince herself not to let go. Chapter 2532. She was not a clingy woman, but when she saw him hugging the woman intimately, she felt as if her heart had been pierced by a knife. In the hotel, the dawn dinner that originally belonged to 2 people was now occupied by 3 people sitting at the table, but each of them had their own thoughts. Wuxia was a little nervous. He glanced at the woman sitting next to him from time to time. He didn't know if she had seen the scene just now. He deliberately introduced her to Rongxian formally in order to prevent the 2 women from thinking too much. He was also surprised to meet Rongxian in Italy. He even forgot that there was a girl in the distant country of Italy whom he had loved when he was young. In his innocent youth, he also had a girl who he loved. At that time, his feelings for her were very simple. He liked her and wanted to marry her when he grew up and live happily with her for the rest of his life. It was a beautiful imagination like a fairy tale. However, this love gradually faded as the memory faded. Compared with the unforgettable memory of him in Rongxian's mind, his memory of her disappeared with the flight to Italy. Rong Xian sat at the table and cut the steak absent-mindedly. As if to ease the tension, she deliberately put all her attention on the steak. She carefully cut it into neat cubes and finally stuffed it into her mouth silently. At this moment, no matter how delicious the steak was, it was like chewing wax in her mouth. Yun Shishir glanced at her and then at the man next to her. She didn't say anything but silently cut the steak and tasted it casually. In the long intense atmosphere, Yun Shishir was the first to break the silence. "Honey, aren't you going to introduce her?" Hearing her words, Muyaja finally came to his senses and looked up. "Rong Xian, have you forgotten? You have just introduced her name," Yun Shishir said again. "Is there nothing else worth introducing except her name?" This sentence was slightly unfriendly. It could be heard that she was very repulsed by this woman named Rong Xian. It was said that women were extremely sensitive. Yun Shishir was a meticulous person. Even a fool could tell that this woman named Rong Xian was looking at her man in a different way. She clearly had feelings for him. But this kind of adoration was not something she was happy to see. Which woman could tolerate a woman who had feelings for her man sitting at the same table as her? Not even for a moment. Therefore, the moment she opened her mouth, the smell of gunpowder filled the air. Muyaja could also tell that Rong Xian's tone was unkind. Just as he was about to speak, Rong Xian smiled and said, "I'm sorry, my behavior today was indeed a bit abrupt. However, Zhe and I haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Now that we've met again, it's hard to suppress the joy in my heart. Please forgive me for offending you." Pausing for a moment, she looked at Muyaja and said shyly, "I didn't expect to meet my childhood sweetheart. I feel very fortunate and happy." Childhood sweethearts. She didn't like this word at all. Her heart skipped a beat. She was his childhood sweetheart? Chapter 25-33. The woman did not seem to notice the uncomfortable expression on Yun Shishir's face. She smiled faintly and said in a low voice, "I'm also a little surprised. I haven't seen you for so many years, and I didn't expect Zhe to be married. Oh, by the way, I still don't know your name." Rong Xian noticed Yun Shishir's unintentional protest. However, this woman had immigrated to Italy at the age of 10 and had grown up in Italy. Therefore, she had adopted the typical straightforwardness of Europeans, and did not hide her hostility towards this woman. She asked for her name, but her tone was not polite either. "My name is Yun Shishir." "Yun Shishir. Does that mean Yun Shan Shishir?" "Yes. Yun means Yun, and Shir means poetic." "Oh, you guessed right." Muyaja was a little surprised by her Chinese. She had immigrated to Italy at the age of 10, but she could still speak Chinese fluently and clearly. It was indeed amazing. Rong Xian seemed to understand the doubt in Muyaja's eyes and said lightly, "Zhe, did you know? I'm working in the embassy now." "Is your mother still a diplomat working in the embassy?" "Yes." She was calm, generous, and elegant. Her speech and manner of conversation were extremely noble, and she had an indescribable temperament. If one had to describe her, one could only say that from her speech and behavior, this woman was obviously from the upper class. Her natural and unrestrained manner made her image seem a little harsh. After all, she was Muyaja's wife, and this woman was just her husband's childhood sweetheart. After so many years, it was not inappropriate for them to sit down and have a meal together, reminisce about the past, and tease each other. However, Rong Xian's lack of honesty and unkind words made her seem a little petty. "Childhood sweetheart?" Yun Shishir suddenly laughed and looked at him. "I didn't expect you to have your first awakening of love when you were young. I thought you were like this when you were young, rigid and dull like a little old man." "Haha, really?" Rong Xian was a little surprised. When Zhe was young, he was not as mature and steady as he is now. Although sometimes he was a little dull and gloomy, most of the time, well, at least when he was with me, he still loved to laugh. When he was young, his eyes were very beautiful, as if there were countless little stars hidden in them, and they were very charming. It was because of his eyes that I fell in love with him. Her straightforwardness and openness made Yun Shishir a little uncomfortable. One Yun Shishir, and Rong Xian's words, Rong Xian's Yunz's tuz's to her. She's S's. However, because the narration came from the mouth of a woman, Yun Shishir couldn't help but resist and reject it. While Yun Shishir was silent, She saw Rongxian looking at Muyaja with a smile. At the same time, she seemed to recall the carefree days of her youth through his face. Chapter 25-34. Very big. Muyaja put down his knife and fork, took a napkin, and elegantly wiped the traces of tears from the corners of his mouth. He smiled slightly and said, I still remember how you looked like when you were a child. Your eyes were big and watery, and you were always crying. Whenever you cried, the sky would darken, the earth would change color, your nose would turn red, and your tears wouldn't stop. No matter how I coaxed you, it was useless. After that, he didn't continue. Rongxian couldn't help but laugh. Who said that coaxing didn't work? At that time when you saw me crying, you would try to make me happy. However, you didn't know how to coax girls and you didn't know how to be opportunistic. When you were at your wits' end, you could only hold me in your arms and coax me gently. I asked you to sing, and you sang obediently. Just like that, I listened and stopped crying. Do you still remember? When you were a child, you didn't sing well. You couldn't even sing properly. You just sang all over the place. I was crying and crying, but I was so amused by you that I forgot to cry. As Rongxian spoke, a faint glow appeared on her face, and she looked extremely gentle. She was immersed in nostalgia, but the more she thought about it, the more melancholy she felt. Thinking about how the man she used to love was now married, her heart ached again. With such a bad mood, she deliberately wanted to give Yun Shirshir a taste of her own medicine. She deliberately led the conversation to the memories of their youth, as if she was deliberately trying to upset her. It was just as she wished. Yun Shirshir's appetite was turned upside down by her. She suddenly put aside her knife and fork, lowered her head, and took a napkin to wipe the corners of her mouth silently. Rongxian's understatement was infinitely magnified. She could tell that Rongxian was deliberately trying to disgust her. Why was she talking about the past at this time? Could it be that she was deliberately trying to anger her? She had never participated in or known about the youth of the man she loved. In those beautiful memories there was no her name, only Rongxian's. So was she flaunting her prowess to her? Was Rongxian deliberately making fun of her? Thinking of this, Yun Shirshir gently took a sip of the dry red wine. Then she elegantly curved the corners of her lips and smiled. That's great. From what you said, I found out that a certain man has such a cute side. Sometimes when he thought about it, he felt regretful. I did not participate in the memories of his youth, but fortunately my name will be in his future, and only my name will be in it. Thinking of this, I feel very satisfied. The look on Rongxian's face suddenly froze for a few seconds. She looked at him deeply and said with a faint smile, Shirshir, do you know? I really envy you. I can see that Brother Zhe is deeply in love with you, but there are some things that can't be envied. However, I feel that the more blissful it is, the shorter it is. Therefore, the more blissful it is, the more we have to seize every moment. If you are not careful, happiness will fly away from your hands as if it has grown wings. Therefore, the more blissful you are, the more you must know how to grasp it. Of course I understand that. Yun Shirshir smiled faintly. Rongxian then sighed. Things have changed with the passage of time. As soon as she finished speaking, a weak voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 25-35. Daddy, I'm hungry. Rongxian froze for a moment and looked in the direction of the voice. She saw a little boy in a shirt open the door and walk out of the room, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Yu was awakened by hunger. When he opened his eyes, he saw Xiaoyichen sleeping soundly with his limbs spread out. He rubbed his small belly and decided to leave Xiaoyichen alone and get up to look for food. As soon as he put on his clothes, Yu vaguely heard someone talking outside the door. When he heard Yun Shirshir's voice, he immediately opened the door and went out. However, as soon as he walked into the dining room, he saw 3 people sitting at the table. One of them was a brown-haired woman, who was beautiful but unfamiliar. Yu couldn't help but be stunned. She was probably a friend of his parents. He thought to himself, then ignored her and ran over to Yun Shirshir to ask for a hug. Yun Shirshir sat him on her lap and asked curiously, Mommy, what time is it now? It's past 7 o'clock in the evening. Aya, did I sleep for so long? I guess I won't be able to sleep again tonight. Oh. Yun Shirshir's gloomy mood was instantly dispelled. She couldn't help but gently pinch his little face and say unhappily, I should have woken you up earlier. I shouldn't have let you sleep for so long. Otherwise, you'll be full of energy and won't be able to sleep at night. Rongxian's eyes were wide open from the beginning to the end. For a moment, she couldn't digest the child's identity well. Just now, when she saw the child running out of the room, that extremely handsome little face fell into her eyes, and she was a little surprised at once. She saw the little boy's small pink face, a pair of big black and bright eyes, a small nose, a pink mouth, and snow-white teeth. When he smiled, small dimples appeared on his cheeks. He was unbelievably cute. His delicate little face was unbelievably fair, as if it was carved out of jade. It made people want to reach out and touch it personally to be sure that the child was alive and not a work of art. The expression on the little boy's white and lovely face was lovely and charming. He was like a polite little gentleman, and when he smiled, it was as if his heart was about to melt. What surprised her even more was that almost at the first sight of the child, Rongxian immediately realized that the child must be Muyaja's child. If he kept a straight face, he would look exactly like Muyaja in his younger days. She could only imagine how handsome and cool he would be when he grew up. His looks would be earth-shattering. But this cute side of the child's face. And when he glanced, he gave out a cold Z's eyes. However, when he turned his head to look at Yun Shirshir, his expression instantly changed. An obedient and adorable smile appeared on his face again. His lips curled up to reveal his pearly white teeth as he called out to her in a childish voice. It was simply enough to make one's heart melt a little. She was so envious. If she could have such a cute child, she would be willing to exchange her precious youth for it. Was this his child with her? He was already so big. But, if she remembered correctly, he was only 29 years old. And this child looked about 6 or 7 years old. Could it be that he got married at the age of 12? Chapter 25:36. So early. He was a proud man who had always been free, and did not like to be bound by any restrictions. For him, marriage was just a formality. How could he get married so early? Rongxian's heart suddenly turned cold. The unwillingness in her heart instantly turned into a powerless loss and empty loneliness. Over the years, it wasn't like she had never had a man before. Some of them didn't last long, while others lasted for 2 to 3 years. However, all kinds of men passed through her world, but she could never find the naivety of her first love when she was young. First love? To her, he could be considered an obscure first love, right? Or was it just her wishful thinking? Rongxian suddenly realized that the expression on her usually elegant and calm face was a little stiff. She tried to adjust the muscles on her face and raised the corners of her lips with difficulty, although it looked a little forced. "Brother Zhe, is this your son?" When Muyaja heard this, he raised his head and nodded. Then, a trace of affection and even pride appeared on his originally cold face. He was very proud of his 2 sons, Yu and Xiaoyichen. "Yu, this is Aunt Xian." Yu's gaze finally landed on the woman. He gave her a more formal look before his lips curled into a gentlemanly smile. "Auntie Xian." Even though the smile on her face was cute, her voice sounded unwilling and cold. It was not very affectionate. Perhaps the child was intelligent enough to sense that his mommy wasn't friendly to this woman. No matter what the reason was, the little guy was naturally on the same side as his mommy. Therefore, even though he called her auntie, his tone was incomparably cold. The smile on Rongxian's face faded a little because of embarrassment. When Yun Shirshir heard this, she was inexplicably angry. He was indeed her son, who was in the same trench as her. Yun Shirshir saw Yu's coldness towards her and felt warm in her heart. Perhaps the little guy also realized that she did not like Rongxian, so his attitude towards her was particularly cold. Rongxian did not seem to be discouraged. In front of Muyaja, she naturally tried to build a good relationship with him. She said affectionately, "Your nickname is Yu, right?" "Yes." Yu only gave a brief yes, and then pestered Yun Shirshir to cut the steak for him. Good. You've just woken up and you have such an appetite." She mumbled to herself in love and annoyance before feeding him the steak she had just cut. Yu opened his mouth wide and took a big bite. His mouth was stuffed with food as he mumbled, "While little Ichin is still asleep, I secretly got up to look for food." "Is Xiaoichin still asleep?" "Yes," Muyaja suddenly said. "Go and wake Muichin up. Otherwise, he'll complain that he's hungry at night." Yu pouted and did not say anything. He jumped down from Yun Shishir and went to the room to wake Xiaoqian up. Everything seemed so harmonious. Rong Xian looked at this harmonious scene and felt that her presence was unnecessary. Chapter 25:37. He's so cute. Everyone says that sons look like their mommies, but I didn't expect you to look exactly like you when you were young. She was deliberately bringing the topic back to when they were young. This woman was really up to no good. Was it because she couldn't get a word in when they were talking about their childhood? This woman's every word and action was trying to exclude her. Muyaja asked, "Is that so?" "Yes. He really does look like you when you were young." "He's my son, so of course he looks like me." After a pause, Muyaja continued, "However, he doesn't look exactly like me. His eyes look more like Shishir's." Shishir. What an affectionate way of addressing her. Just like how he used to call her Xian Xian. It was extremely intimate. Rong Xian bit her lips silently. Her eyes were slightly red because of envy and jealousy. "That's great, you have a son. I'm so envious. It's a pity that I'm still single now. Maybe it's fate, but I haven't found the person I like yet. My parents keep urging me, but I still feel that it's better to be single. After all, there are some things in my heart that I can't let go of. I don't want to force myself to let go." As Rong Xian spoke, she looked a little sad. Yun Shishir felt even more nauseous all of a sudden. She did not know what kind of meaning was hidden in the woman's words. In the room, Yu climbed onto the bed and quickly removed the blanket from Xiaoqian's body. Then she grabbed his collar and shook him awake. Xiaoqian opened his eyes groggily and saw Yu's enlarged face right in front of him. Her pink lips opened and closed as she said, "Muichen, mommy was bullied by a bad woman." "What?" Xiaoqian's sleepiness instantly disappeared. He opened his eyes and asked fiercely, "Where did this bad woman come from? How dare she bully my mommy?" "Humph. I don't know where she came from," Yu said angrily. "When I arrived, I noticed that the atmosphere was a little strange. I was still thinking, could it be another old lover of daddy's that popped out of nowhere?" Xiaoqian sat up as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He raised his hand and swore, "That's impossible. I swear, at least as long as I've grown up, Daddy has never had an unknown woman by his side." "You can't read his mind, so how would you know?" "Forget it. I don't care. Get up and chase that bad woman away." Muichen nodded and immediately. Inside the dining room, Yun Shishir was completely unaware of the grand scheme. The two lads were plotting in secret. She lowered her head and listened to the two men's conversation. "So, did you come to Italy to take wedding photos?" "Yes." Muichen looked at Yun Shishir affectionately and smiled. "We can't be careless about our marriage. We've delayed it for so long, so we should give her a satisfactory explanation. Of course, we can't be careless about our marriage. Even if it's just a wedding photo shoot, we have to put in a lot of effort." Hearing this, Rong Xian's smile became weaker. She felt that she was purely looking for trouble this time. Chapter 25:38. Do you have any recommendations about the best locations for the wedding photo shoot? There are a few good locations in Italy, but they are usually not open to the public. For example, the Caserta Palace and the Savoy Palace. However, if it's me, I can pull some strings. If the wedding photo shoot is done in the palace, the result will definitely be very luxurious. Mu Yaja's eyes twinkled. He did not have many connections in Italy. Italy was not a market that he could dabble in, so resources were scarce there. However, Rong Xian was different. She was the country's ambassador in Italy. Her mother was a diplomat in the embassy, so she had a wide range of connections and a high status in Italy. If she were to rely on her abilities, it would not be a big problem. Mu Yaja quickly expressed his desire to go to the palace for the wedding photo shoot. Rong Xian suddenly said, "How about this? Let's meet at the entrance of the hotel at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll bring you in, how about that?" After a pause, she looked at Yun Shishir and said, "What do you think? If the wedding photo shoot is done in the palace, the result will definitely be amazing." Yun Shishir was a little confused by her kindness and friendliness. She was so kind. Rong Xian did not know what she was thinking with such enthusiasm and flattery. "I have no objections." Yun Shishir smiled and did not say anything. Rong Xian immediately said, "Then it's decided, right?" Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Okay. Yu pushed Xiaoichen out of the room and said, Mommy, Muichen said he's hungry and wants to eat cheesecake. Rongxian thought, Muichen? Who is Muichen? She turned around and was shocked when she saw the two little fellows who looked like replicas standing together. 2. In front of her, the two little guys looked exactly the same except for their height. She quickly realized that Yu had a twin brother, Muichen. So, Yun Shirshir gave birth to a pair of cute babies for him. No wonder he was so favored. A mother's status depended on her son, and a mother's status depended on her son. It must be because she had given birth to a pair of sons for him that she was so favored. Rongxian was surprised. The probability of giving birth to twins was extremely small. It was obvious that Muyaja doted on Yu very much. It was obvious that he loved the child very much. If that was the case, then his love extended to her as well. She suddenly felt that it was extremely unfair. Rongxian was a little surprised. Shirshir, it turns out that Yu has a brother. Muichen asked. Mommy, who is this auntie? How come I've never seen it before? Hearing this, Rongxian immediately said, Little fool, I knew your father before you were born. I grew up with him when I was little. Muichen was a little disgusted by her deliberately affectionate calling him little fool. He turned his face away proudly and said in a serious voice, Don't call me little fool. No one can call me little fool except for Daddy and Mommy. His deliberate rejection made Rongxian's face stiffen again. Soon, a weak smile appeared on her face, and it was even a little pitiful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I called you little fool because I like you. You like me but you call me little fool? What kind of logic is that? Chapter 2539. Xiaoichen said with some annoyance, Mommy, I don't like this auntie. She's so annoying. Can you let her go? Yu's eyelids twitched. This kid was a little too aggressive with his words. But he liked it. Ichen. Muyaja scolded softly, seemingly dissatisfied with his son's attitude toward Rongxian. Don't be so rude. Woo! Little Ichen whimpered in grievance like an aggrieved kitten. He seemed to be a little angry inside. Why is this stupid daddy of mine siding with an outsider? Rongxian looked disappointed again, but she forced a smile and immediately said, Brother Zhe, the child is not sensible. Don't scold him. It's inevitable that he will reject me when he sees me as a stranger. Muyaja said, The child is not sensible. You can't spoil him. After a pause he said to Xiaoichen, Auntie Xian is a guest. As the little host, shouldn't you be more polite to the guest? His words made Yun Shirshir feel a little better. Guest. Host. The distinction between the primary and the secondary couldn't be any clearer. What did this mean? This showed that Rongxian was just a guest in his heart now, except for the innocent memory, and it was the etiquette of a host to treat her politely. This also meant that she was the host and Rongxian was just an outsider. Xiaoichen was enlightened when he heard this. He immediately understood Muyaja's position and walked over reluctantly. He stuck to Yun Shirshir's side and sat on her lap obediently. Yu also stuck to Yun Shirshir's side. The two little guys sat next to her as if they were her protectors. Rongxian's face was a little embarrassed when Muyaja said that Rongxian was a guest. The smile on her face quickly withered like a flower. It seemed that his attitude was very clear now that he had placed her in the position of a guest. In the end, she was overthinking things. Thinking of this, Rongxian turned to Yu and smiled. You are Yu, right? Yes. She then looked at Xiaoichen. You're Xiaoichen? Yes. The two of them really look alike. If it weren't for their different hairstyles, I would have mixed them up. Rongxian said and suddenly reached out to Yu, trying to pinch his pink cheeks. Yu immediately turned his face away in disgust. It was as if the woman in front of him was a hungry wolf. Yu? Yun Shirshir suddenly smiled and said to Rongxian, Although this little guy is small, he is very smart and has a temper. Not everyone will touch his face. Rongxian was a little angry. She had made it clear that she had deliberately tried to please the two little guys for Muyaja's sake, but in the end, she was not appreciated. She could not help but feel a little annoyed. I'm very narrow-minded, and not everyone can call me Yu, especially if it's someone I don't like. After a pause, Yu pretended to be generous and said, However, since you are a guest of Daddy and Mommy, I'll give Aunt Xian this special right. The little guy deliberately emphasized that she was a guest of Daddy and Mommy, implying that she was an outsider. Rongxian could no longer sit still. Chapter 2540. Rongxian was a little embarrassed. She stood up and said, "It's getting late. I have to go back to deal with something." "What is it?" "There's a traffic accident. I need to deal with it." "A traffic accident?" "Yes." Rongxian nodded. "I was rear-ended by a Bentley today. It's not over yet." "Are you hurt?" Muyaja asked out of concern. Rongxian shook her head. "It's nothing. It's just a rear-end collision. I'm fine." "That's good." Rongxian nodded and said, "Then I'll go now. You guys should rest early. See you tomorrow." As she spoke, she stood up, picked up her handbag, and left like a defeated general who had deserted the army. Muyaja walked her to the door and watched her leave. When he turned around, he saw that the smile on Yun Shirshir's face had suddenly faded. She stood up, put her knife and fork aside, went into the room expressionlessly, and closed the door with a bang. Shaoichen was a little flustered and worried when he saw this. He immediately ran into the room. Muyaja frowned and was about to walk over when Yu suddenly stopped him. "Daddy, shouldn't you give me an explanation?" "Or an explanation?" "Explanation?" Muyaja was confused. "What's wrong? Who is this woman?" "A friend." "A friend?" Yu shook his head and then said unhappily, "The word friend is too general. Ex-girlfriends are also friends. Old lovers are also friends." Muyaja frowned and the corner of his mouth twitched. "Old lovers? Where did you learn this word?" "On TV. Watch less TV in the future," Muyaja said and was about to go to the room. Yu ran in front of him again and stopped him. "You're not allowed to leave." The little guy's attitude was a little tough. Muyaja asked patiently, "What is it now? Could this woman be Daddy's childhood sweetheart?" The little fellow's keen perception shocked him. Just from the conversation, he had roughly figured out the woman's identity. Muyaja hummed in acknowledgement and did not deny it. Yu shrugged and said, "Actually, I don't care who this woman is, and I don't want to investigate her past. But if this woman's appearance makes Mommy unhappy, shouldn't Daddy find a way to deal with the situation?" Yu snorted coldly. Even a fool could tell that the way Auntie Xian looked at Daddy was different. It was no wonder that Mommy felt aggrieved. Another woman was showing affection for her man in front of her. She definitely couldn't stand it. Since Daddy also said that they were friends and childhood sweethearts, it should be a very old past. Daddy was not being kind at all about this. You didn't care about Mommy's feelings at all. Muyaja was speechless. He suddenly squatted down and looked at him. "Do you know that you're acting like the presiding judge? Will you only stop when you convict Daddy?" "Humph. You're my dear Daddy. I wouldn't dare." He couldn't help but scratch his nose. "Why wouldn't you dare? Aren't you trying to convict your dear Daddy now? You made Mommy unhappy. Of course I'm angry at you." Oh. Chapter 2541. Yu furrowed his brows and grumbled unhappily. "Daddy, why do you have so many rotten admirers? There's no end to them." After Mu Wanru left, Song Enya came. As if that wasn't enough, now there's Auntie Xian. Who knows who else will pop up after that? "Daddy, you can only blame yourself for being too charming. The line of people who like you stretches all the way to Siberia. Still, you should at least consider Mommy's feelings. You should break up with a woman like her." As a son, he lectured his father until he could not get angry at all. Muyaja immediately bowed his head to his father. "Daddy knows his mistake now. It's great that you can correct your mistakes." Yu then ruffled his hair. "Hurry up and coax Mommy." "Okay, got it." Muyaja gently pushed open the door to the room. The lights were dim, and the moonlight outside the window spilled in. He could vaguely see Yun Shirshir lying on the bed, and Shaoichen lying on the edge of the bed. When he heard the door open and saw him coming in, he immediately ran away. He walked over and squatted down beside the bed. The person on the bed seemed to sense his approach and pulled the blanket up a little, covering herself completely with it. Even her breathing seemed to have stopped. Muyaja sighed silently and reached out to lift the cup. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, clutched the blanket tightly and covered herself with it, not even letting out a breath. He asked in a deep voice. Madam, are you angry with me again? No, Yun Shirshir said sullenly, but her tone was extremely awkward. She was obviously sulking. Muyaja pondered for a moment, not knowing how to explain it. He had also vaguely sensed that something was wrong with Yun Shirshir's expression during dinner tonight. She was a little nauseous and a little nauseous. He knew in his heart that her abnormal behavior tonight was probably related to Rong Xian. He could also tell that Rong Xian's attitude toward Yun Shirshir was not very friendly. Both women were very possessive. Rong Xian was his childhood sweetheart. Perhaps if that accident had not happened, the Rongs would not have migrated to Italy. Based on his character perhaps, there would not have been an accident like Yun Shirshir's. However, there were no ifs in life. They had missed each other by a freak combination of factors. One's past, the other's present and future. The two secretly competed with each other. Neither was willing to give in to the other, but they were both jealous of each other. For a moment he really was at a loss for an explanation. She felt that it was best not to explain this matter. The more she tried to explain, the worse it would get. Instead, she would feel that there was something going on between them. But that did not mean that Yunz's SSS. He sat on the edge of the bed and lay down next to her. Rong Xian emigrated with her family when she was 10 years old, he said faintly. From that day ours I have been of the two. Moreover, what happened more than 10 years ago has become the past. Today's meeting was also unexpected. Don't misunderstand that I came to Italy especially for her. It was difficult for him to explain so seriously. After racking his brains, he finally managed to come up with an explanation that wasn't really an explanation. Yun Shirshir did not say a word. At this moment, she felt a little upset. She did not know what she was upset about. She only knew that she was probably jealous of Rong Xian. Chapter 2542. Was it because of his possessiveness? She wanted to find out more about the past between him and Rong Xian. For example, Rong Xian said that they were childhood sweethearts. Childhood sweethearts. That was an extremely ambiguous term. The fact that they were childhood sweethearts proved that they used to be very close. Although they were separated when they were 10 and 12 years old, she couldn't help but wonder how close they were, that he, who had always been estranged from women, didn't refuse Rong Xian's passionate hug. After being separated for more than 10 years, this woman seemed to have a lot of emotions, but his expression was calm. It was unknown if he was really calm, or if he was deliberately hiding the surging emotions in his heart. Childhood sweethearts, it should be a very deep memory. But if Rong Xian hadn't emigrated, then according to this man's character, then what about her? She suddenly didn't dare to think about it. If you loved someone deeply, you would want to be the only one in his life. If you were more extreme, you would even want to be his destined lover. However, the sudden appearance of Rong Xian immediately disrupted her plans. She suddenly felt a little unconfident. Today it was Rong Xian. What about tomorrow? Would there be other childhood sweethearts? This man was so outstanding, so there should be many women who liked him. There should be many women like Rong Xian, right? The more this was the case, the more she felt a loss of confidence. Perhaps she was feeling insecure. Therefore, she was eager to know his feelings for Rong Xian. While her thoughts were running wild, Yun Shirshir suddenly heard Muyaja get up and walk slowly to the balcony. She heard the sound of the door opening. At the same time, she felt a little surprised and a little lonely. This man had finally lost his patience with her. It seemed that he rarely coaxed her. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Rong Xian had said before that when she was wronged and cried sadly, he would gently stay by her side, coax her patiently, and even sing for her. But, previously, when she asked him to sing at the KTV, he looked very reluctant. She begged him in every possible way, but he didn't sing a single song. It was so unfair. Just thinking about it made him feel dejected. Right now she was just throwing a tantrum. As long as he was patient and coaxed a little, she wouldn't be so willful. Yun Shirshir suddenly lifted the quilt in disappointment, but suddenly heard Muyaja's calm voice from the balcony. Xian, I have something to tell you. When Yun Shirshir heard this, her expression changed. She walked to the balcony and looked through the floor-to-ceiling window at the back of the man standing on the balcony. She frowned in confusion. Tomorrow's schedule is cancelled. Why? On the other end, Rongxian asked in surprise. Brother Zhe, didn't we make an agreement before? Don't tell me you don't want to go to the palace for your wedding photo shoot? There's no need to go through so much trouble, Wuxia said casually. Why would you go through so much trouble? Rongxian smiled and said hurriedly, many people want to film in the palace, but they are not qualified to go in. However, as long as I say the word, the entire palace will be unimpeded. Chapter 2543. Wuxia said, if I want to get in, I don't have to go through you. These words were a blatant rejection of him. I don't have to go through you. What is this? Rongxian had mixed feelings. She didn't know what that woman said to him after she left. Why was he so cold to her? Through the floor-to-ceiling window, Yun Shishir could vaguely hear the estrangement in his words. She was a little surprised. It turned out that this man was not impatient to coax her. He knew that no matter how he coaxed her, if this matter was not completely resolved, it would definitely leave a gap in her heart. So what he decided to do was to completely remove this gap. Therefore, he decided to keep a distance from Rongxian. This man had always been swift and decisive. Once he thought of something, he immediately put it into action. He didn't care how much pain his words would cause Rongxian and didn't have the slightest hesitation. Yun Shishir was his wife, so he should be concerned about her feelings. Other than that, other feelings were not so important. Rongxian was stunned and said a little hesitantly, Brother Zhe, you're being too polite. She suddenly said, are you free now? Why don't we talk alone? Just now, because Yun Shishir was a third party, there were some things that she couldn't open up to him. Therefore, she invited him over the phone, hoping that he could meet her alone. After losing contact for more than 10 years, she had thought that she had completely forgotten about him. However, now that they met again, from the moment they met unexpectedly, the infatuation hidden in the depths of her memory gushed out again. Rongxian believed that this was fate, so there were many things that she wanted to tell him. Therefore, she summoned her courage, put aside her ladylike demeanor, and took the initiative to ask to meet him. Wuxia frowned but didn't speak for a long time. What's wrong? Is it inconvenient? If it's not convenient, I'll pick you up. It's not inconvenient. Wuxia paused, then smiled and said, my wife doesn't like me to meet with other women alone. Rongxian was completely silent on the other end of the phone. From the phone, she could vaguely hear her gasp, which was followed by a long period of suffocation. It seemed that she had been beaten black and blue by this sentence. Why must you be so cold? Brother Zhe, don't you think you're being too heartless to me? These words are too hurtful. Wuxia smiled faintly and said without hiding anything, Xian, I know your feelings for me. However, this affection was broken 17 years ago, on the day you immigrated to the United States. But now I have a wife that I love deeply and a happy family. As a man, I have to consider my wife's feelings. Rongxian was stunned. His straightforwardness was somewhat unacceptable. 17 years ago, you disappeared from my life. You emigrated to Italy with your family. I was indeed very sad, very sad. I even thought about applying to a famous university in Italy and following you to Italy. However, when I was 20 years old, I took over the affairs of the Mu family. From then on, your name completely faded from my life. Rongxian couldn't help but confess hurriedly, but you have never faded from my life. Wuxia smiled and said, this is different. Chapter 2544. Rongxian couldn't help but confess, but you've never faded from my life. Wuxia smiled. That's different. What's the difference? Rongxian asked eagerly. Wuxia said slowly, because you've faded from my life. Rongxian was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Her heart ached so much that she almost suffocated. What could be more heart-wrenching than this sentence? However, what he said next made her feel as if she had been struck by lightning. From the moment she appeared, you no longer left any traces behind. There was a long silence. Rongxian pinched her palms and mustered up her courage to ask, Brother Zhe, I just want to ask you one question. She carefully probed. Have you ever had feelings for me? Wuxia pondered for a moment. How can you say that I've fallen for you when I was young? How can it not be? Was he admitting that he had been tempted before? Rongxian's heart, which had been full of despair, was rekindled. So what if it was more than a decade ago? After so many years, I've never forgotten you. I'm married. Muyaja calmly reminded her of this fact again. It was a deliberate coldness. You know my character. Once I've decided on someone or something, I'll never change my mind. Then if... Rongxian was at a loss. If you hadn't met her, if she didn't exist, you... There's no if. He interrupted her, not giving her any hope. Just answer me directly. Rongxian insisted. If you hadn't met her, if this woman hadn't appeared in your life, would it still be possible between us? Muyaja gave her an answer almost without any hesitation. No. Words of love had to be short and the feelings had to be deep. This was his attitude toward relationships and he was resolute to the end. He didn't give her any hope or leeway. He directly shattered her fantasy with his own hands. This can't be true. Rongxian's voice trembled. Have you never liked me? No. Muyaja's coldness with just 2 words instantly put her in a bottomless ice cellar. The other end of the line quickly hung up and displayed a busy tone. Muyaja hung up the phone expressionlessly. When he turned around, he saw Yun Shishir standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at him in a daze. Seeing that he had finished his call and was walking in, she immediately clarified. I didn't eavesdrop on purpose. The more she said this, the more guilty she felt. She felt like she was eavesdropping. Muyaja raised his eyebrows. You heard everything? She nodded awkwardly, feeling a little embarrassed. Although she didn't hear what Rongxian said, she heard everything he said just now. Muyaja took a step closer to her and leaned over slightly. Looking into her eyes, he asked gently, Are you still angry with me now? Yun Shishir immediately explained, I'm not angry. You're still denying it? Muyaja couldn't help but scratch her nose. When you're angry, you like to hide from me like a little turtle hiding in the corner. And you're still denying it? Yun Shishir looked away awkwardly and muttered, I'm just a little sad. Sad about what? Nothing. Chapter 25:45. I'm going to wash up. After that, she walked towards the bathroom. The man suddenly grabbed her wrist, pulled her into his embrace, and hugged her from behind. Shishir, don't be angry. Shishir, don't be angry. His euphemistic tone seemed to be trying to please her. Usually, in front of outsiders, he would introduce her as wife or wife. But in private, he liked to call her Shishir, especially when they were having sex. He hugged her tightly and whispered in her ear over and over again. Shishir. Shishir. She was so happy that she felt numb. Often, when he called her name so gently, she would lose all strength to resist in an instant. Shishir, even if I had feelings for Rongxian, they died more than 10 years ago. She was indeed my childhood sweetheart, but I was young and ignorant. I couldn't even tell what love was. Don't be angry because of this and punish me in a disguised way. I'm not angry. Yun Shishir bit her lip and said quietly, I'm just a little jealous. Jealous? Muyaja frowned. Jealous? What was there to be jealous of? When it came to jealousy, Rongxian was jealous of her. Yun Shishir pursed her lips and said, Maybe I'm too emotional. She suddenly turned around and looked up at him. She said casually, Do you know? I'm actually very jealous of her. When we were young, she was able to accompany you and share so many memories with me. When I heard her talk about the past with you when you were young, I felt bitter and envious. I even started to wonder if you would still be together with her if I didn't appear. Even if there are memories, it's all in the past. Have you ever liked her? Yun Shishir suddenly asked. Muyaja frowned. He suddenly felt that women were really interesting. Just now, Rongxian had also persistently asked him if he had ever liked her. Now she was also relentlessly pursuing this topic. To a man, whether or not he had liked or loved before was not important. Only a relationship that had a beginning and an end was worth cherishing. The past was not worth mentioning at all. Women like to explore the past. As for him, he cherished the present and the future even more. He didn't want to look back on the past. However, he had no choice but to answer her question. Otherwise, her imagination would run wild again. This woman was always so insecure, and he, as her man, naturally had the responsibility to comfort her. This question is very tricky. It requires a strong imagination to give you a satisfactory answer. He gave such an answer. Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of answer is that? Because there are no ifs in this world. Mu Yaja paused for a moment before continuing. You're asking if, but there's no such if. You just need to know that I've already set my mind on you and that it has to be you. No matter who appears, it's a fact that cannot be changed. So, it's meaningless for you to ask if. Well. Chapter 2546. Mu Yaja pursed his lips. Lung Jun couldn't help but say, if I were to say that, it would be a little biased. I'm not an emperor who can't have multiple wives and concubines. If I like someone, I can only give it to one person. What's the difference in number? Yun Shirshir couldn't stop laughing all of a sudden. Were those words of love? She stared at him seriously, looking at the curve of his lips. His lips were thin and cold, but because of this sentence that sounded like words of love, it was extremely gentle. Yun Shirshir suddenly hugged him emotionally and threw herself into his arms. Burying her smiling face in his chest, she said in a guilty and coquettish manner, I'm sorry. I was too narrow-minded. I couldn't be so calculative over such a small matter. As she said that, she rubbed her face against his chest like a spoiled kitten, languid and coquettish. I'm not angry anymore, and I won't be petty anymore. I like how petty you are. Mu Yaja gently stroked her hair and cupped her face with his broad palm. He lowered his head slightly and gave her a kiss on the corner of her lips. At least this shows that you care about me a lot, Of course I care. Yun Shirshir blushed and said, I care about you no matter how big or small it is. I don't even care about a strand of your hair. Originally, Rongxian's sudden appearance had cast a shadow over her heart. However, his words had lifted the clouds in her heart, and she had returned from a land of ice and snow to a sunny day. Even her somewhat gloomy heartbeat recovered and became as warm as before. Did this mean that they had reconciled? Yun Shirshir silently cursed in her heart, but a sweet smile appeared on her face. That night, after the lights were turned off, he pressed her against his body and was especially passionate when it came to making love. This man would never say words of love that would make one's heart beat faster. Therefore, in bed, he showed unparalleled passion and put all his shameful words of love into action. What an introverted and profound man. When he held her in his arms, so many affectionate words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't speak frankly. Thus, he used these feelings that were difficult to speak of in the context of love. Amidst his passion, he hugged the back of her neck and helped her sit on top of him. He hugged her shoulders and pressed them against the side of his shoulders. He leaned close to her ear and kept saying her name. Shirshir. Shirshir. The tip of his heart was so happy that it felt numb. After the charm, he hugged her and buried his face in her neck. He pecked at the fine beads of sweat on her chest and felt every inch of her trembling skin. He closed his eyes and said softly, I will love you for the rest of my life. This was probably the deepest love. She had already become his heart, his ribs, the softest part of his body that he wanted to protect. I will love you all my life. He said this sentence silently. His voice was not loud, but it was very deep. Just like the impression he gave people, he was mature and steady. Yun Shirshir hugged him. At this moment, she was so happy that she didn't know what to do. To be able to have such a relationship, she had no regrets in this life. To be able to hold his hand for the rest of her life, she had no regrets in this life. She imagined that when the two of them were old and gray, they could still hold hands like this and have no regrets in this life. Chapter 2547. Yun Shirshir woke up very early in the morning. She finally managed to coax the two little lads out of bed, but she also managed to coax a certain man out of bed. After Mu Yaja sat up, he lowered his head sleepily and yawned. This was a stark difference from his usual spirited appearance. Serves him right. He must have exhausted himself last night. She was different from him. Although the journey was tiring, he was the one who took care of everything. As for her, all she had to do was put on her wedding gown and take photos. As for the rest, she would leave it to him. She had caught up on sleep on the plane. This man, on the other hand, had indeed been too busy for the past few days. In the spare time during the wedding photoshoot, He still had to open his laptop and go through the financial reports and important documents sent by Lu Jinyu. He was busy for half the night. He had done it with her many times last night. However, men were different from women. She had already gotten used to his rhythm. In addition, he had exerted more effort last night, so she wasn't too intense. On the other hand, he was busy and couldn't bear to stop until the wee hours of the morning. Although she was also a little tired, after a good night's sleep, she was still in high spirits with anticipation for the wedding photoshoot. Yun Shirshir said coldly, "Who asked you to not know how to control yourself? The journey was so tiring, and last night." Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and suddenly reached out to hold her waist. With a flip, he pinned her under him and snorted coldly. "Aren't you thinking too much?" What? Yun Shirshir was shocked by his sudden attack. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she asked, "What do you mean by thinking too much? Are you suspecting that I overdid it last night and exhausted myself?" "Isn't that the case?" Yun Shirshir blinked slyly. She looked like a kitten who was having an affair. "Won't you know if I overdid it when you try?" As Mu Yaja spoke, he led her hand to his erection. Yun Shirshir was taken aback by the scalding temperature. What? Why was he so energetic early in the morning? Because of the man's blatant provocation. Her face immediately turned red with embarrassment. "Stop fooling around. Stop messing around." Mu Yaja laughed and curled his lips. "You're the one who's provoking me. I didn't. Isn't that so? Are you questioning my stamina?" Yun Shirshir stuck out her tongue silently in her heart. Sure enough, I can't easily provoke a man. No matter how steady a man was, when faced with this provocation, he would immediately take it seriously. Even if it sounded like a joke, men can also be indifferent. Moreover, he was such a proud man. Mu Yaja coldly snorted. "My physical strength is more than enough to deal with 10 of you. Do you want to try?" "No." Yun Shirshir pouted. "I was just joking. Why are you taking it so seriously? There are some things that you can't joke about," Mu Yaja said seriously with a serious expression. "Especially in this aspect. All right, I won't do it in the future. But you're not young anymore. It's kind of me to remind you to control yourself a little." "Old?" A certain man raised his eyebrows. He was 29 years old, not yet 30 years old. He was still a good young man. How did she make it sound like he wasn't young anymore? Chapter 2548. Yun Shirshir thought to herself. If things were to continue like this, she wondered if he would still be able to maintain such good stamina when he reached middle age. Her face instantly heated up at the thought of this. How embarrassing. Wasn't she overthinking things? Mu Yaja seemed to be able to read minds. He immediately sensed what she was thinking and said in a low voice, "Don't worry. Even when I'm 80 years old, I'll still fulfill your wishes." Yun Shirshir was speechless. Did he have to be so direct? "Where are we going to take our wedding photos today?" She quickly changed the topic. However, her self-righteous wit couldn't fool a certain shrewd man. "Don't try to change the topic." Mu Yaja snorted coldly. "Do you think I'm so easily fooled? Don't be so serious. There's no point in being serious. I don't mean anything by it. You're the one who's thinking too much." A certain little woman threw the burden away. She rolled her eyes slightly and smiled. "Otherwise, people will think that you're the one who flew into a rage out of humiliation." The man slapped her but gently and snorted. "You're asking for a beating. Be good, stop fooling around. Be a good girl and get up to wash your face and brush your teeth." "No." The man threw a childish tantrum. He indulged in her body and didn't want to get up. He thought to himself that it was still early. Should he take advantage of such a beautiful morning to enjoy some morning dessert? Yun Shirshir could tell that he was up to no good. She immediately said, You and Xiaoichen are already up. If they come in and see you, they'll make fun of you again." This sentence had the effect of an absolute deterrent. Those two mischievous little rascals. They were always ruining his plans. Hence he stopped fooling around. He pressed her down and kissed her a few times, reluctant to part with her. Then he nimbly got up from the bed. After washing his face and brushing his teeth, he felt refreshed. The hotel delivered an exquisite breakfast. The family of four sat in the dining room and enjoyed the wonderful breakfast time. As Yu gracefully enjoyed her breakfast, she asked calmly, "Mommy, are we going to Venice for our wedding photo shoot today?" Yun Shirshir was a little surprised. "How did you know? Who told you that?" "Daddy said so." Yun Shirshir cast a puzzled look at a certain calm man. "Today's target is Venice?" "Yes." Mu Yaja looked up at her. "Why, you don't like it?" "I like it." Yun Shirshir was overjoyed. "I used to yearn for Venice. The scenery must be beautiful, right?" "Not bad. I don't come to Italy often." "Haven't you been flying all over the world? You should have been to quite a few countries." "Yes, but that's a business trip, not a vacation. Most of the time I'm in the hotel. If I'm not in a meeting, I'm meeting important people. There's basically no time to go sightseeing." "I see." Yun Shirshir took a bite of her sandwich and fantasized. "The scenery should be good. But it's a pity that we're in a hurry." Shaoichen said, "If you like, you can set aside an extra day for sightseeing. Daddy will definitely agree, right?" "Can I?" Yun Shirshir asked for his opinion. "If you like, there's nothing that can't be done." His doting reply made her feel much happier. This man. Chapter 2549. After breakfast, the four of them cleaned up and left the house happily. They had agreed to meet at the entrance of the hotel with Mankey. However, when Yun Shirshir walked out of the hotel with Muyaja's arm, she saw a Maserati parked at the entrance. Her eyelids twitched violently as she recalled the glimpse she had seen the previous afternoon. If she was not mistaken, this car belonged to that woman. Soon her guess was confirmed. As soon as they walked out of the hotel, a woman got out of the Maserati. This woman was none other than Rong Xian. Why was it her again? Why is this woman still haunting me like a ghost? Yun Shirshir's originally bright and cheerful mood sank to rock bottom in an instant. Her face sank as well. If she did not remember wrongly, the man had already laid his cards on the table with her last night. No matter how heartless he was, he had spilled everything. Since he was so straightforward with his words, this woman must have suffered quite a bit of heartache, right? Why was she so shamelessly sticking to him now? Could it be that her heart had not given up yet? Had his words not been cruel enough? Had he not been straightforward enough? Or could it be that his words had triggered her desire to plunder? Yun Shirshir glanced at Muyaja, who was next to her, and saw that his face had also become a little gloomy at this moment. Muyaja stared at Rong Xian with a gloomy face. Rong Xian walked over to them as if nothing had happened. It was as if she had completely forgotten what Muyaja had said the day before. She had a gentle smile on her face, which was as elegant as it could be. She was so elegant that it made people wonder if she was heartless. If it had been any other woman, her heart would have been broken when the man she loved laid his cards on the table so straightforwardly. However, she acted as if nothing had happened. Rong Xian walked over and smiled at Muyaja. She greeted him. "You're so early. But I'm even earlier than you. I arrived at 8:30. In fact, she had arrived at 8 o'clock. It was all for the sake of waiting for them. That's right. Did he really think that she would give up completely just because he said those cruel words? Impossible. Since they had met, she stubbornly believed that this was fate arranged by the heavens. As she spoke, she ignored Muyaja's gloomy expression and shifted her gaze to Yun Shirshir. She then intimately walked up to her and held her hand as affectionately as if they were sisters. "Shirshir, I heard from Brother Zhe that you're not planning to go to the palace for the shoot. Is that right?" Yun Shirshir didn't know what to say. Rong Xian smiled and suddenly said regretfully, "What a pity. When I went back last night, I made arrangements for you guys. Brother Kaja called to say that you guys decided not to go to the palace for the shoot. He felt sorry for you guys." "There's nothing to regret," Yun Shirshir said. "We've decided to go to Venice for the wedding shoot." "Venice? That's not bad. The scenery in Venice is beautiful, and it's a world-famous city. It's a romantic choice for the wedding shoot." After a pause, she pretended to be generous and asked, "Do you need a guide? It's rare for you guys to come to Italy. You should get together more while you're doing the wedding shoot." "I don't think we need one," Yun Shirshir said bluntly. "Our schedule is tight. After the shoot, we have to go back to China." She was ruthless and direct, leaving no room for negotiation. Chapter 2550. Rong Xian didn't expect her to be so determined. She tried to persuade her to stay. Italy is a good place for sightseeing, and it's the off-season now. There aren't many people there. It's rare for you to come to Italy. Don't you think it's too hasty to leave after shooting? Yun Shishir said resolutely. I don't think it's rushed at all. Both he and I have work to do. We're taking advantage of the holiday to take wedding photos, so it won't take too long. Compared to her silence last night, her attitude today was much tougher. Rong Xian couldn't help but feel shocked. Her strength and enmity towards her couldn't be any more obvious. She didn't know what this woman had said to Wuxia, but as soon as she left last night, he immediately called her and said that he wanted to cut off all ties with her. His tough tone seemed to indicate that he couldn't even maintain the friendship between friends. It must be her. She must be the one behind this. Rong Xian thought bitterly, but she was getting more and more excited. Suddenly, she smiled and turned to Wuxia to ask for his opinion. Brother Zhe, you don't have to be so polite. I grew up in Italy, so I'm very familiar with this country. As the host, I naturally have to give you a warm welcome and do my duty as a host. If you leave in such a hurry, it'll make us seem estranged. If word gets out, people will say that I'm neglecting you. I can't do that. It's useless to talk to him, Yun Shishir suddenly said. He's here because of my temperament. If I want to stay here, he will postpone his schedule and accompany me for a few more days. If I don't want to stay, he won't stay either. Rong Xian was shocked by her straightforwardness and undisguised attitude. All along when she spoke to this woman, she had always concealed her feelings. Even if she hated her, she didn't show it on her face. However, things were different now. Yun Shishir's face was full of disgust for her. Anyone with a little insight could see that she hated Rong Xian to the extreme. Why? Rong Xian saw that Yun Shishir didn't hide her dislike for her at all, and a weak and aggrieved look quickly appeared on her face. You don't seem to like me very much. Yun Shishir's lips curled into a contemptuous smile as she intimately hooked her arm through his. That's right. I really don't like to see you. Let's go back as soon as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. Why? You don't like to see me. There must be a reason, right? Rong Xian asked with a forced smile. Yun Shishir cocked a brow. You don't need a reason to hate or like someone. There is no reason. Is there? Is no reason. Rong Xian looked at Yun Shishir. She smiled, pretending to be affectionate. Shishir, I think you must have misunderstand something is wrong with me. Shishir. Was it because of the conversation between Brother Zhe and I yesterday? Did it make you uncomfortable? But don't get it. I was just too excited to see a friend I haven't seen for many years. So, if I said something I shouldn't have, please don't take it to heart. Brother Zhe is like a big brother to me. It's not what you think. Chapter 2551. Yun Shishir's smile stiffened. She had thought that after what she had said, Rong Xian would be humiliated and leave angrily. However, that was not the case. Instead, she smiled and spoke kindly to her. Her warm smile and guilty gaze made it difficult for anyone to find fault with her. Her expression of being wronged and forced smile was flawless, as if she had suffered a great grievance. She looked so pitiful that anyone who saw her would feel pity for her. It made her seem too mean, didn't it? Wuxia frowned slightly and finally said, Rong Xian, don't be ridiculous. Rong Xian noticed how he addressed her. Rong Xian was an extremely unfamiliar name. In the past, he had always called her Xian Xian. Now he had changed the way he addressed her. Unknowingly, the distance between the two of them had widened. Her shoulders trembled and her thick eyelashes suddenly fluttered. A teardrop suddenly rolled out of her eye socket uncontrollably. Brother Zhe. She suddenly stepped forward emotionally and forced herself to maintain her elegant demeanor. She smiled bitterly with tears in her eyes. Last night when you called me, I heard everything you said. I thought about it all night and cried all night. I've really thought it through. I used to have high hopes and expectations for you. But now that you have your own happiness and a perfect marriage, I sincerely wish you all the best. I have no other thoughts. However, Shishir seems to be very hostile towards me. This is not what I wanted to see. She paused and sobbed again. From now on, I'll be settling down in Italy. And you have your own life too. We can only see each other once. After this separation, we don't know when we'll meet again. Just take it as a memorial to the past. Don't tell me you're stingy with giving me such an opportunity? Yun Shirshir clenched her fists in anger when she heard this. This woman was shameless to the extreme. She couldn't figure out what this woman was trying to do. Since she had already made things clear, why was she still clinging on to Muyaja? Was there some ulterior motive? No matter how hard she racked her brains, she still couldn't think of a reason. However, when she saw Muyaja's impatient expression, she suddenly smiled and said, "We're going to take our wedding photos today. Do you want to come along?" "Of course." Rongxian smiled through her tears and said, "You definitely need help to take wedding photos. I can help you lift your dress or touch up your makeup sometimes." "Alright, since you insist, then let's go together. I don't have any objections." She seemed to be taking a step back, but in fact she had her own little scheme. No matter which woman wanted to play tricks, sow discord or fan the flames, when she took a step back she was also taking a step back. Since she couldn't see clearly, then she would make her see clearly. Let's go together then. A public display of affection? She had never been willing to show off her love. She always felt like she was putting on a show. But, since someone wanted to see it, then she would show it off. The hotel had arranged for 2 cars. One of them was for luggage and could seat 3 people. The 2 cars had a total of 6 people. Chapter 2552. Yun Shirshir offered to team up with Rongxian. Obviously, she was still wary of her and did not trust her to be alone with Muyaja or one of the 2 little ones. Rongxian gladly accepted. On the way, Yun Shirshir and Rongxian sat in the back seat while Yu sat in the front passenger seat. Yun Shirshir buckled her seat belt for her and the car set off. After a long silence in the car, Rongxian finally broke the silence. "Shirshir, don't you and Brother Zhe need some privacy?" "What?" Rongxian asked. "You 2 are always together. Don't you get tired of it?" "Not really," Yun Shirshir said. "He and I are usually very busy with work. Other than at night, we are busy with our own careers. However, as long as he is free, he will put everything aside and stay by my side. Then wouldn't you have less privacy?" "He doesn't need privacy." Rongxian's face stiffened and she changed the topic. "Speaking of careers, what do you do for a living?" "I'm an actress." "An actress?" Rongxian was even more surprised. "Shirshir is a big star." "I'm not a big star. It's just a hobby," Rongxian said quietly. "The domestic entertainment industry is a mess. Shirshir, you must keep your nose clean and don't get involved with those messy practices. The entertainment industry is a big divat. The relationships in the industry are very messy. Brother Zhe values these things very much. Don't make a mistake." Yun Shirshir sneered in her heart. Rongxian pretended to be considerate of her, but her words were so harsh and harsh. It was obvious that she was targeting her. Yun Shirshir looked at Rongxian's hypocritical face and smiled slightly. "Thank you for the reminder. Shirshir, how did you and Brother Zhe meet?" She suddenly asked curiously, not knowing what her intentions were. "Do you still remember the scene when you first met?" As soon as her voice fell, Yun Shirshir's face changed. The first time they met? To be precise, the first time she met him was probably a very accidental situation. She had been fired from the company, and when she was returning home with some documents, she was accidentally hit by his car that was coming over. That was the first time she saw him. However, strictly speaking, the 2 of them met for the first time in a seaside villa, on a very unfamiliar bed. At that time, he was her employer and she was the surrogate mother on the contract. She was willing to sell her body for 5 million yuan just to give birth to a child for the Mu family. Because it was not suitable for artificial insemination, natural insemination was used instead. At first, she was extremely resistant, but the arrow was already on the bowstring, and there was no way out. She vaguely remembered the first time they met. She was lying on the bed with a red silk covering her face. She heard the sound of heavy footsteps outside the door. Pushing open the door, accompanied by the cold night wind, he walked in and sat on the bed. At that time he was probably scrutinizing her carefully. Had have no feelings for her. It was as if he was just an employer looking at his prey. Then, without any more pleasantries, he asked her to spread out her body to welcome him. Yun Shirshir furrowed her brows. What a terrible first meeting. Chapter 2553. If possible, she did not want to recall it. Rongxian was a little confused by her cold response and asked curiously, "You don't remember? It's been too long." "I don't think I remember," Rongxian replied carelessly. "Speaking of which, I don't remember the first time I met him either. That's because I grew up with him. When I was young and ignorant, he was already in my memories." Rongxian began to recount the story. Because the Rong family and the Mu family had a good relationship, they lived close to each other. Therefore, the two of them grew up together. They were childhood sweethearts and knew each other very well. "I really didn't expect Brother Zhe to get married so early." Rongxian paused and suddenly asked, "Did you and Brother Zhe get married?" "Married? Yes." Rongxian nodded and smiled innocently. "He is the successor of the Mu Group and the successor of Dishing Financial Group. As his wife, you must be the daughter of a prestigious family. I still don't know which family you are from." "The Yun family." "The Yun family?" Rongxian was lost in thought. "I don't think I've ever heard of the Yun family in the capital. I'm not from a prestigious family." After a pause, Yun Shirshir said calmly, "I'm just a child of an ordinary family. I'm not from a prestigious family." "A commoner?" Rongxian suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Yun Shirshir frowned and stared at her unhappily. Rongxian quickly apologized. She did not know whether she had exclaimed because of a momentary loss of composure, or if she had done it on purpose. She said guiltily, "Shirshir, I've been abroad for a long time, so I don't mean it. Please don't take it to heart." "I'm a commoner," Yun Shirshir said bluntly. "But what's so surprising about a commoner?" "I didn't mean to belittle a commoner," Rongxian hurriedly explained. "I just find it unbelievable. According to the rules of the Mu family, it's forbidden to marry a commoner." "Forbidden?" Yun Shirshir noticed this word. "That's right. The bigger a clan was, the more they paid attention to matching the social status of the two families. The Mu family was the wealthiest family in the capital. They had a big family business and a deep foundation. As the heir, the Mu family was especially particular about Brother Zhe's fiancée. Regarding family background, the Mu family had strict requirements. They had to go back 3 generations and get to the bottom of it. However, when I migrated to Italy, I still knew about some of the Mu family's activities during those years. At that time, she had heard that Brother Zhe's grandfather seemed to have stood his ground and picked a girl of unknown origin to be Brother Zhe's fiancée. The whole Mu family is against it. I heard that her name is Mu Wanru or something." Yun Shirshir's eyelids twitched violently. However, this marriage didn't happen after that. Yun Shirshir asked coldly, "Could it be that the rich and powerful place a lot of emphasis on matching families?" "Yes, very much." Chapter 2554. In my eyes, that piece of clothing is nothing, but for him, it's a month's worth of expenses. After a pause, Rongxian smiled and said, "There's not much surprise in being in a relationship with a commoner like him. He spent an entire semester's worth of living expenses, and could only buy a box of foundation from me. There will never be any surprises in a relationship like this. It will be as plain as water, and I will have to adapt to his values, consumption, and lifestyle. Therefore, even if we love each other, we will still be defeated by the cruel reality." Yun Shirshir was stunned when she heard this. "So, Shirshir, I really envy you. I can tell that Brother Zhe truly loves you. With his kind of life, he has always lived a life of luxury. But in order to adapt to you, he must have lowered his status to adapt to your life and your values. He must love you very much." Yu heard this but remained silent. Deep down, she found it funny. Was love really like this? Were values based on material conditions always right? Whether it was love or marriage, could it be that what a woman really wanted was just beautiful branded clothes, bags that cost millions, beautiful jewelry, and desires that could be satisfied with money? If love was really that simple, then it was really worth celebrating. In fact, whether it was love or marriage, as long as two people worked hard to integrate into each other, there would be enough tacit understanding. As long as there was love, there were no rules that could not be broken. As long as there was love, there was nothing that could not be overcome. Daddy was indeed a rich man, but after he got together with Mommy, he did not lower himself and adapted a lot for Mommy's sake. However, Rongxian saw that Daddy was enjoying it. It was not because he was great but because he loved him enough. Yun Shirshir suddenly sneered. What are you hinting at? Rongxian widened her eyes and hurriedly said. Shirshir, I'm not hinting at anything. You're thinking too much again. Please don't mind me, I'm just being frank. Oh, I thought you were hinting that I don't have a background and status and that I'm not good enough for him. How could that be? Rongxian laughed dryly. I didn't think that. In fact, I think you're great. Great. I think your courage is commendable. After all, for the sake of love, you're willing to break the rules and obsess over it. That's really amazing. I admire you. Yun Shirshir did not reply immediately. Yu suddenly turned his head, and with a meaningful smile on his face he casually said, Auntie Xian, I admire you too. Hearing this, Rongxian couldn't help but feel happy. She thought that the little boy was going to praise her, so she raised her head slightly and asked, Oh, what do you admire about me? The boy smiled gracefully. I admire your thick skin. Ahem. Yun Shirshir choked on her son's words and coughed. The expression on Rongxian's face suddenly froze. She was gritting her teeth with a faint smile. What? Of course, Rongxian of Daddy. Rong of Xian, you don't seem to know your limits at all. You keep sticking to Daddy and Mommy. Don't you think you're an eyesore? Rongxian's face suddenly froze, and the muscles on her face twitched. This kid. What was he talking about? Chapter 2555. Oh, but it's only natural that you don't have such self-awareness. That's why I said I admire your shamelessness. Yu paused for a moment, then said in disgust, Daddy and Mommy finally have some alone time together, and you're still clinging to them. You're really a wet blanket. Rongxian was finally completely enraged. No one had ever humiliated her like this before. She had never been humiliated by a child. She immediately tugged at the corners of her lips and sneered. Shameless? I think you're the uneducated one. However, it's understandable that you're uneducated. After all, your mother is a commoner. How good can her son be? Although you inherited your handsome face from Brother Zhe, your temper is just like your mother's. Before she could finish speaking, only a pa sound could be heard. Without any warning, Yun Shirshir raised her hand and gave her a tight slap across the face. Rongxian, I'm warning you. Watch your mouth when you talk to my son. Rongxian covered her burning cheek and stared at Yun Shirshir in disbelief. Her eyes were full of anger. You hit me. Yun Shirshir said coldly. Your mouth is dirty. You deserve to be hit. Rongxian was completely furious. She raised her hand and was about to slap her back. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, was quick to react. She held her hand tightly, and no matter how much she struggled, it was to no avail. Perhaps out of anger, she used a lot of strength. Rongxian gritted her teeth and struggled, but she couldn't break free. She couldn't help but say angrily, Yun Shirshir, let go of me. Rongxian, I'm warning you, behave yourself. Yun Shirshir sneered as she inched closer to her. Sweeping her expressionless gaze across her, she sneered. Why? Just because you're his childhood sweetheart you feel smug, right? I'm a commoner, so my courage is commendable? Then what are you? You know that he has a family and his own happiness, but you're still clinging to him with ulterior motives. What are your intentions? Yun Shirshir. Rongxian shouted at her indignantly. You don't deserve him at all. Don't deserve him. You're just a commoner. Don't you know the rules of the rich? It's taboo for a noble to marry a commoner. Who do you think you are? How can you deserve Brother Zhe? If he were to marry the daughter of another prestigious family, I wouldn't have any complaints. But why is it that he married a commoner? Why you? Rongxian poured out all her resentment and anger as if she was venting her anger. Her face immediately flushed red. She was so agitated that she started to ramble. You said you're an actress? Ha! How can a woman in the entertainment industry? From what I see, you must have cultivated some kind of bewitching technique and bewitched him. That's why he's so infatuated with you. Slap. Yun Xian's wronged on Rongxian. Rongxian was slapped in the face. She felt so wrong that tears flowed down her cheeks. Why did you hit me? Because of your cheap mouth. Yun Shirshir coldly reached out to grab her by the collar and pulled her toward her. She enunciated each word clearly. I want to remind you of one thing. In this world, no woman other than me is worthy of him. No woman is more worthy of him than I am. Do you understand? Her words were powerful and bold. Chapter 2556. Wow, wow, wow. Yu Yu's eyes sparkled with excitement. Mommy, you're awesome. Mommy, you're awesome. Teach this bad woman a lesson. He clapped his hands excitedly, glanced at Rongxian, who was in tears, and suddenly snorted. Bad woman, are you proud of yourself? Do you think you're so great? Your father is just an Italian entrepreneur of Chinese descent. However, since the financial crisis 5 years ago, his business has been hit hard and has been losing money for years. I think he won't be able to maintain his reputation for long. The so-called daughter of a rich family will become a down-and-out in a few years. Rongxian froze. She looked at Yu Yu in disbelief, her eyes wide with shock, and asked in a trembling voice, How? How do you know all this? Yu Yu raised his eyebrows and asked casually, Why can't I know? Oh, I also know that your father is a famous entrepreneur on the surface, but in private, he has made a lot of investments, all of which have failed because of the lack of capital. He didn't even get a Series A financing. I don't know how long his debt-ridden company can last. Rongxian was stunned and didn't speak. Yu Yu stared at her face slowly and suddenly sneered. As for your mother, do you think no one knows how much she has paid in order to climb to that position? Haha. The dark side of politics has always been known for its filth. Didn't she maintain a dirty relationship with many politicians in order to get to the top? Rongxian was shocked. What he said was spot on. The Rong Corporation used to be a powerful enterprise in Italy. 10 years ago it was listed in New York and had created amazing glory. As a Chinese company, the Rong Corporation had a certain prestige in Italy. However, since the financial crisis 5 years ago, the real business had been hit hard, and the Rong Corporation had also been affected. In the financial crisis 5 years ago, the Rong Corporation had almost gone bankrupt. They had tried many ways to stabilize the situation, and barely managed to not declare bankruptcy. However, the price of maintaining the status quo was the lack of capital. The Rong family had not hesitated to sell their assets and continue to invest. The ratio of profit and loss was tragic. They were losing hundreds of millions of yuan every year, and their family's assets were almost emptied, but there was still no turnaround. What was even more frightening was that the Rong family was now heavily in debt. As for the latest round of financing, the financial street was more pessimistic about the future development of the Rong Corporation. However, the financing of a few million yuan was equivalent to nothing. Soon Madame Rong would not be able to hold on any longer. This was also the reason why Rongxian was so enthusiastic after meeting Wuxia. She thought that even if she couldn't continue their relationship, at least she could use the Mu Group's resources to help the Rong Group get through this difficult time. As for Yu Yu's mother, Rongxian was too embarrassed to speak. The reason why she was able to work in the embassy was all because of her mother's connections, and the connections her mother had accumulated were all through dirty means. The political world was in a foul atmosphere. If he wanted to rise to the top, he would have to exhaust all means. However, these were all extremely secretive inside stories. Others had no way of knowing. He was just a child, so how did he know? Could it be that Wuxia had found out? Chapter 2557. Yun Shishir was also a little surprised. What Yu Yu said was really shocking, but judging from Rongxian's surprised expression, it must be the truth. But how did he know all this? Yun Shishir was also a little surprised. Yu Yu continued coldly. The reason why you stick to Daddy is that you want Daddy to ignore his old relationship with you, and use the Mu Group's resources to help the Rong Group through this difficult time. Isn't that right? Nonsense. Rongxian felt guilty, but she couldn't defend herself. She only said, I don't think so. You're just a child. What nonsense are you talking about? Yu Yu smiled elegantly, but his tone was full of mockery. Don't you know in your heart whether it's nonsense or not? Anyway, I don't care to point it out. But what right do you have to laugh at Mommy's so-called commoner identity? What the hell? Rongxian's face was livid. The Rong Group is not as bad as you say. Oh, let's wait and see. Not as bad as that. As long as he used some means and put pressure on them, the Rong Group would be declared bankrupt in less than 2 months. At that time, the Rong family would fall overnight and become a laughingstock. They would not be able to survive in Italy and would be bankrupt. Even if they wanted to escape from Italy, They would never have the opportunity to do so. The Rong family would be nothing but a joke. Last night, in the study, he sent Li Hanlin to investigate the Rong group, and the result made him feel cold. Rong Xian acted high and mighty like an arrogant young lady, but in the end the Rong family was so ruined, and she was still so arrogant. However, it was impossible to let Rong Xian go so easily. You played a little trick. Well, for example, he sent Li Hanlin to call the embassy in Italy and gave them a brief explanation. In less than 2 days, the procedures for Liang Qingyi's dismissal were being handled urgently. 3 days later, the dismissal announcement would be officially announced. Liang Qingyi, Rong Xian's mother. Once Liang Qingyi was dismissed, Rong Xian's political career would soon come to an end. How dare she bully his mommy? He was determined to make the Rong family go bankrupt. Let's see if she can still be so smug then. Yu suddenly smiled elegantly, looking like a scheming little gentleman. She said with a smile, "If you apologize to my mommy now, I may give the Rong Corporation a chance." Ridiculous. How could Rong Xian believe that a child could be so capable? She smiled coldly. It was impossible for her to lower her head and apologize to Yun Shirshir. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Humph, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. After Yu finished speaking, he turned around and ordered the driver in fluent English, "Throw this woman out of the car." Rong Xian immediately understood and screamed, "How dare you? Do you think I wouldn't dare? If I dare to say it, then I dare to do it." The driver immediately stopped the car, opened the door, grabbed Rong Xian's hand and pulled her out of the car. Rong Xian struggled again and again, but she couldn't resist the man's strength and was pulled out of the car. Rong Xian was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Chapter 2558. Yun Shirshir was dumbfounded. Yu nagged, "Mommy, you were so polite to her. A B***tich like her." He stopped abruptly. Yu covered his mouth and realized that he had lost his composure. He quickly said, "Yes, no. You can't swear. You have to be elegant and dignified." Pfft. Yun Shirshir was amused by him. "What are you laughing at?" Yu looked at her reproachfully. Yun Shirshir asked curiously, "What are you trying to say?" She couldn't help but be curious. Yu said, "What I want to say is that a bad woman like her should be rougher. You don't have to be merciful." "Okay, Mommy will remember that." Yun Shirshir couldn't help but pat his little head. She smiled dotingly and said, Yu, you're Mommy's knight in shining armor." "I've always been Mommy's knight in shining armor." Yu raised his eyebrows proudly and said, "I'll be the first to stop anyone who bullies Mommy." "But how do you know that the Rong Corporation has fallen?" Yu snorted and said, "This information can be found with a simple check. I was wondering why she kept pestering us. So it's because of the Rong Corporation." Yu said, "No matter how powerful she is, she won't be able to turn the tide. Instead, she'll get herself into trouble. The Rong Corporation only exists in name. The Rong family is holding on bitterly, hoping for a chance to survive. However, it's all in vain. The Rong Corporation won't be able to recover. Sooner or later, they'll be declared bankrupt." Yun Shirshir was confused. She didn't quite understand, but she vaguely understood one thing. The Rong Corporation was hopeless. "Mommy, don't let a bad woman ruin your mood. Come out and have fun. Come, smile." Yun Shirshir's eyes narrowed at his words, revealing a mesmerizing smile. The mother and son looked at each other and smiled. When they arrived at the filming location, Yun Shirshir carried Yu out of the car. Muyaja walked over. Obviously, Rong Xian had already called him to complain. However, he didn't blame Yu. Instead, he glanced at him affectionately. "What happened just now?" Yu was the first to step forward and accuse her righteously. "That bad woman bullied Mommy. I couldn't stand it, so I got someone to throw her out of the car." Muyaja narrowed his eyes meaningfully. Just when Yu thought that he was going to reprimand him, the man smiled deeply and said with relief, "Well done." Little Li Chen, who was convulsing with laughter at the side, tried to hold back his laughter. Earlier in the car, that bad woman called Daddy and said that Mommy bullied her. "Mommy, do you know what Daddy said?" "Huh? What did he say?" Yun Shirshir glanced at Muyaja. She couldn't help but wonder how Muyaja had reacted. Xiaoyi Chen immediately said, Daddy said that the evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear. Ha ha ha. Yu nodded happily and said earnestly, Daddy, you did well. Xiaoqin danced as he described. You don't know how much that bad woman cried on the phone just now. It was like the world was falling apart. I thought to myself that you deserved it. Who told you to bully mommy? You deserved to be thrown out of the car. You couldn't help but tease him. Muichen, you're really something. You can even use idioms at your fingertips. Xiaoqin winked at him and said, Yes, you taught me well. Taught him well. Yun Shishir couldn't help but cover her face in shame. Chapter 2559. After the 2-day shooting period was over, the group of people went home. Upon returning home, Yun Shishir immediately rushed to report to the production team. However, the moment she reached the set, she heard Mushi talk nonstop about what had happened while she was away. Shishir, I have bad news and good news. Which do you want to hear first? Yun Shishir said. Don't keep me in suspense. Tell me both at once. Okay. Then I won't deliberately mystify you. Mushi paused and then lowered her voice. Did you know? A few days ago, Lu Jingtian committed suicide by jumping off a building. Yun Shishir was stunned when she heard this. Her eyes widened in shock as she stared at her in disbelief. What? You didn't hear wrongly. And you don't have to doubt the authenticity of this matter. Lu Jingtian's farewell ceremony was held 2 days ago, and many celebrities in the entertainment industry attended it. Why would she commit suicide out of the blue? Yun Shishir could not help but find it strange. There's something fishy about this. Didn't her surgery go smoothly? Plus, before I left the country, I heard that she had safely passed the critical stage. Why would she commit suicide for no reason? Mushi shook her head blankly. This news came too suddenly. You were overseas at that time, so naturally, I couldn't tell you about it for fear of disturbing your mood. Besides, it's not a big deal to us. Qin Zhou has already posted a condolence message through your Weibo account. Yun Shishir was still in disbelief as she said in a low voice, I just find it too strange. Lu Jingtian is so headstrong. Since the surgery went smoothly, why would she commit suicide? It's probably because she's too headstrong. Mushi paused for a moment before continuing. Do you know? Qin Zhou, Director Ji. And I went to the hospital to deal with Lu Jingtian's funeral, and by chance we saw her face. At this point, she took a deep breath and shook her head regretfully. It's too tragic. That fire destroyed her face. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was covered in cuts and bruises. Not only that, but there were also different degrees of burns on his body. The most serious was his legs. His muscles were burned and he had to endure great pain during the rehabilitation period. Perhaps it's because living like this is too painful, so he chose to end his life? Yun Shishir's heart skipped a beat. She could never understand what kind of pain it was. After all, the needle wasn't stuck in one's body, so how could one empathize with it? She suddenly thought of Yun Yeqing. He must be in a lot of pain, right? She couldn't help but feel a little worried. After Gong Jie brought her father back to the Gong family, he contacted her and told her that her father had been sent to the medical center and would be undergoing a long recovery period. Due to confidentiality, they could not make a video call. But Gong Jie assured her that he would update her on her father's condition at any time. Only then did she relax a little. During the funeral ceremony, I saw President Lu's hair turn white overnight because of the pain of losing his daughter. Even though I used to hate Lu Jingtian too, I actually felt bad for her. But now, he only felt pity for her. After all, the dead are the most important, and life and death are unpredictable. A fresh life was lost overnight. Yun Shishir sighed. Chapter 2560. At first I couldn't figure it out either. Since she's not even afraid of death, why is she still afraid of living? Yun Shishir suddenly frowned. That's because sometimes, living is scarier than dying. Mushi was stunned. If that's the bad news, then what's the good news? Yun Shishir deliberately avoided this topic that would make one feel complicated. The dead were already gone, so she did not want to probe too much into it. Mushi immediately reacted. A mysterious smile appeared on her face as she mischievously asked, Guess what happened in the few days you weren't in the country? I'm asking you precisely because I don't know. Yun Shishir pushed her. Alright. Stop keeping me in suspense. Just tell me directly. Sure. I'll tell you a piece of great news. Li Xianer has been banned. Yun Shishir was not too surprised, but she was curious as to why she was banned. What happened? A few days after you left the country, a website exposed Li Xianer's shady dealings with the unspoken rules. Moreover, a video has been circulating on the website. Because of this video, Li Xianer's name has been tarnished. The more Yun Shishir listened, the more incredulous she felt. She immediately urged, "Are you still keeping me in suspense? Don't keep me in suspense. What video is it?" "It's a video of Li Xianer being raped. TSK. It's so explicit." It turned out that not long ago, Li Xianer's bed photos and nude videos were circulating on the internet. The netizens who displayed their prowess took screenshots of the video and compared them with Li Xianer's photo. They then identified the female lead in the bed photos and video as Li Xianer herself. Li Xianer had a beauty mole on the tip of her nose, and the female lead in the video had a black mole on her nose. The female lead in the bed photos was also quickly verified to be Li Xianer herself. Other than Li Xianer, a man also appeared in the bed photos, and this man's identity was quickly uncovered by the netizens. She was one of the executives of Ease Huang Jingxiu. Some people in the entertainment media suspected that Li Xianer had offended a big boss in the underworld and was kidnapped and drugged. The **** recorded a video and controlled Li Xianer. Perhaps because Li Xianer was restless, she angered the **** of the ****. Therefore, the video was posted on the internet and attracted netizens to read it. The name Li Xianer had become a cancer in the entertainment industry. This incident quickly attracted the attention of the General Administration of China Radio and Television. They issued a document to completely ban Ease and Li Xianer. They also launched an investigation on Ease and purged the higher-ups. This incident caused a huge uproar, but it was suppressed by the government in the end. When Mu Shi first found out about this matter, she went to Qin Zhou's place to ask him about it. He then reprimanded her. "Work hard and don't poke your nose into things that have nothing to do with you." However, Qin Zhou's attitude just so happened to confirm her guess. "I'm guessing that Gu Xingze is behind all this. How is that possible?" Chapter 2561. If Gu Xingze wants to deal with Li Xianer, it's just a matter of a word. It's probably because Li Xianer used Yuan Xingze to create hype by hook or by crook that he was completely infuriated by her perverse behavior. That's why he didn't hesitate to use his family's resources in the entertainment industry to suppress Li Xian. Yun Shishir furrowed her brows thoughtfully. She found it hard to imagine that Gu Xingze, who was gentle and refined, would resort to such cruel means. However, Li Xianer had indeed gone overboard, and she had been angered at one point. Sure, don't you remember? In front of you, Xingze promised to deal with Li Xianer properly. Just as you left the country, Li Xianer got into trouble. However, after Li Xianer got into trouble, not a single netizen sympathized with her. After all, on the 7th day of Li Xianer's death, Li Xianer used her to hype herself up and completely offended the netizens. Without waiting for Yun Shishir to speak, Mu Shi snorted again. Serves her right. This Li Xianer is unscrupulous in order to hype herself up. This can be considered a lesson for her. Yun Shishir casually said. This person doesn't deserve any sympathy at all. She brought this upon herself. For the sake of fame, she did whatever it took. Now retribution is here. Aya, let's not talk about this unlucky person anymore. Mu Shi suddenly hugged her with a smile and asked excitedly, "How was it? Did the wedding photoshoot go smoothly?" "Yes, it went very smoothly." "Then, when are you going to announce your marriage to the media?" Yun Shishir was puzzled. "Why do we have to announce our marriage to the media?" Don't you know?" Mu Shi asked in surprise. Usually, when celebrities get married, they have to announce their marriage to the media and the public. Firstly, such a happy event is naturally highly anticipated by the fans. Secondly, even if you don't announce it, the media will still try to find out. Since that's the case, why don't we just announce it directly? On the day of the wedding, we have to specially arrange seats for the media and invite them to report on the grand wedding. I don't seem to want to make such a big fuss. Yun Shishir added. It's better to keep a low profile for the wedding. Mushi asked suspiciously. Sure. Don't tell me you're thinking of getting married in secret? Can't I? Sure, you're so silly. Chairman Mu will definitely not agree. Yun Shursher's face suddenly turned red. He did promise to give me a wedding of the century, but after thinking about it, isn't that a little inappropriate? What's wrong? For example, the public will accuse us of deliberately flaunting our wealth and holding such a big wedding. It's too extravagant. The keyboard warriors on the internet were very scary. Moral kidnapping was not uncommon. They would definitely accuse her of being heartless. She could even imagine the anger of the netizens. For example, an actress's wedding costs so much. For example, Yun Shursher marrying into a rich family in a high-profile manner and flaunting her wealth at the wedding. Just the thought of it was scary. You don't have to worry about this, Mushi said. Just leave it to Qin Zhou to handle. As long as the public relations is in place and the media is given a sum of money, they'll definitely write in a direction that's favorable to you. Oh, Mushi asked curiously. Has Chairman Mu already started planning the wedding? I don't know. Chapter 2562. Yun Shursher raised her hands in surrender. Mushi, please spare me. I'm inexperienced and don't know what to prepare for a wedding. After all, this is my first time doing it. Mushi's lips twitched. Oh dear. I'm so anxious. The eunuch is more anxious than the emperor. Go back and have a good discussion with Chairman Mu. Got it. At the studio, Gu Xingze was taking a nap in the lounge when someone knocked on the door. Come in. An assistant pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing him resting, he was startled. Mr. Gu, am I disturbing your rest? What's the matter? Oh, it's like this. The assistant came over and handed him a document. Li Xianer's matter has been settled. From now on, her name will completely disappear from the public eye. Okay, got it. Gu Xingze suddenly opened his eyes. Where is she? Because the matter has blown up, the CCTV is investigating her. She's now under the CCTV's control. If the investigation proves to be serious, she'll probably be jailed for a period of time. Help me pass a message to the CCTV to deal with her severely. Yes, sir. The assistant immediately understood. Gu Xingze then closed his eyes again. Not daring to disturb him, the assistant hurriedly retreated. After the door closed, Gu Xingze suddenly opened his eyes again. A cold glint flashed in the depths of his eyes as he smirked. Li Xianer? She's too inexperienced to fight with me. In the basement of the villa, hearing someone knocking on the door, Yun Na got up and walked to the door. She opened the peephole and saw a woman standing outside. She immediately opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, the woman in a trench coat immediately entered, closed the door behind her, and locked it. Yun Na sized up the woman and suddenly felt a little wary. Why are you here? Standing in front of her, the woman gracefully took off her hat and hung it on the side. She then turned around and saw Ji Yan's exquisite face. It hasn't been peaceful recently. You're not allowed to go anywhere except here, understand? Yun Na's expression froze. What happened? Lu Jingtian's incident has blown up. The police are investigating this matter and are trying their best to find the culprit. Ji Yan paused for a moment and then said with a frown, I don't know what evidence the police have. In short, they've been conducting a lot of investigations recently, so don't show up for the time being. Hearing this, Yun Na smiled disdainfully. Don't worry, the police definitely won't have any evidence related to me. Are you that confident? Of course. I'm a cautious person. I won't walk right into a trap. Ji Yan was taken aback, and her gaze could not help but fall on her hands. The fingerprints on all 10 fingers of the pair of hands were thoroughly erased using the method of burning and burning. At first, she was shocked when she saw the pair of hands. She remembered asking Yun Na, what happened to your hands? Yun Na replied, in order to hide my identity, I burned all my fingerprints. Burn? Ji Yan was astonished. How did you burn it? In the beginning, use a knife to cut it. Later, use an iron, tongs, and a flintlock. Ji Yan could not help but shudder when she heard that. How cruel. Doesn't it hurt? Yun Na gritted her teeth. It doesn't hurt? How can it not hurt? Chapter 2563. Yun Na raised her head, and her eyes suddenly became extremely cold. Of course it hurts. But compared to the despair of being in hell, this little bit of pain is nothing. The reason she burned her fingerprints was to cover up her identity. Secondly, it was for revenge. Yes, she had been reborn, and the meaning of her life was revenge. Ji Yan's heart suddenly turned cold, and she felt even more terrified. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart, yet she burned her fingerprints. What a vicious and merciless woman. She was so ruthless to herself, let alone to others. This woman was definitely a dangerous person. However, the two of them were now in the same boat and were using each other. Yun Na was using her to get protection, and she was using Yun Na to get revenge. Yes, they had a common enemy, Yun Shirshir. She was determined to eradicate this woman. Back then she had a bright future ahead of her. However, because of a single mistake, she was caught red-handed and her bright future was destroyed just like that. She could not accept it, especially when she saw how bright Yun Shirshir was in the entertainment industry, and how her career was thriving. Not only did the movie she starred in achieve a grand slam at the box office, but she also won an important award at the film festival. For a moment she was in the limelight. She was jealous when she saw that. Therefore, she made up her mind to take back everything that originally belonged to her with her own hands. Ji Yan sat down on the bed and suddenly said, Yun Shirshir just returned to the country yesterday. She returned to the country? Yun Na looked a little surprised. Where did she go before? She told the crew that she was on leave. I didn't know where she was until she returned to the country. I happened to pass by her lounge and heard her and her assistant talking about the wedding photos. Ji Yan paused and said, she probably went abroad to take wedding photos. Wedding photos? When Yun Na heard this, an extremely excited expression suddenly appeared on her face. Ha! Going abroad to take wedding photos is so glorious. How blissful. The smile on her face became even colder and more terrifying. It even had a hint of malevolence. Yun Shirshir, laugh all you want. Be proud of yourself. The more blissful you are, the more despair you will feel once you are destroyed. Just thinking about crushing the person who was immersed in happiness with her own hands made Yun Na tremble with excitement. Filled with excitement, she actually let out a cold laugh. What are you laughing at? Ji Yan shuddered. Don't you think it's interesting? Yun Na suddenly sneered and turned around. She stared fixedly at her face and said with a ferocious expression, don't you think she's very glorious right now? She had a successful career and a happy family. Soon she would be holding a grand wedding. The more blissful it is, the more excited I am. I'm really looking forward to seeing her expression when she sees me. When she died in my hands, what kind of expression did she have? Just imagining it made my blood boil. I'm really looking forward to it. You. Ji Yan looked at Yun Na, who was on the verge of going berserk in shock. Oh right. Yun Na suddenly turned around and interrupted her. There's also that Yun Tianyu. That little B** starred, haha. Back then, he was the one who caused me to be like this. Sooner or later, I'll let him have a taste of being thrown into the ice-cold sea and being eaten by a school of fish. Chapter 2564. She fell into the sea and struggled desperately in the waves. The fishes surrounded her and gnawed at her skin. The excruciating pain was still unforgettable. All her hatred was concentrated on the name, Yun Tianyu. Sooner or later, she would strangle this little B** starred to death. No, wouldn't it be letting him off easy by hurting him like this? She wanted to tie him up and throw him into the sea alive to let him have a taste of despair. Yun Na, don't show your face during this period, or else your identity will be easily exposed. Ji Yan reminded her repeatedly. Yun Na replied coldly, I know. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. It's good that you know what you're doing. With that, she stood up and walked toward the door. Yun Na suddenly called out, Yan Bingqing. Ji Yan turned around abruptly and glared at her coldly. Didn't I warn you not to call me by that name again? Yan Bingqing is dead and I'm Ji Yan now. Don't mention that name again. However, the corners of Yun Na's lips twitched into a smile that was neither cold nor warm. Don't tell me that no one doubts your true identity when you return to the entertainment industry as Ji Yan? Hearing this, Ji Yan's lips curled into a cold smirk. So what if they suspect me? I've completely erased Yan Bingqing's identity. Even if they suspect me, they can't confirm my identity. She didn't suspect you either. Ji Yan naturally knew who the Shi Yun Na was referring to. Yun Shishir? Ji Yan smiled nonchalantly and turned to look at her. When I first appeared on set, her expression when she saw me was obviously suspicious. What's wrong? Is there a problem? I must warn you. Yun Shishir isn't scary. What's scary is the child behind her and Muyaja. Child. Ji Yan was stunned for a moment, but she quickly reacted as the image of Yun Tianyo's elegant and adorable face surfaced in her mind. Her lips curled into a cold smile, but her voice turned frosty in an instant. I'll be on my guard even if you don't remind me. This child is indeed not simple. Not only is he not simple, this child is even more capable than his father. He is much more powerful than you think. I've been trying my best to investigate this child's background, but I haven't had any leads. Can you help me investigate? I can't. Why? Ji Yan frowned. Because I can't figure out the child's origin either. How laughable. A 7-year-old child could actually make people so fearful. If she hadn't seen his methods with her own eyes, it was really hard to imagine that the seemingly elegant and cute child actually had such a cold and ruthless side. Unbelievably, she had exhausted all means to investigate that child called Yun Tianyu, but to no avail. It was very scary. I'm guessing that this child has already suspected me through Yun Yeqing's incident. Yun Na paused for a moment and said, so you have to be vigilant as well. Otherwise, the slightest carelessness would cause our efforts to go to waste. I understand. After saying that, she turned around and left the room. Yun Na went forward and locked the door from the inside. She then opened the peephole and warily watched Ji Yan's back as she left. Only then did she return to her bed. Chapter 2565. The filming of Extreme Youth was extremely arduous. The harshness of the director's team made all the actors complain, but Yun Shishir didn't care. Compared to the harshness of the 2 gold medal directors, Lin Fengtian and Gu Xiaoyang, this crew was already extremely humane. Perhaps, especially after experiencing the torture of Lin Fengtian, she had completely adapted to such a fast-paced shooting. The relationship in the crew was relatively harmonious, perhaps because she was no longer the same as before. After all, when she was still a newcomer in the crew of The Green Apple and Lethal Beauty, most of the actors and even the staff in the crew were flattering and trampling on the weak, so they didn't like her. But now things were different. With billions of box office sales, she was the best newcomer of the year, and her popularity was increasing day by day. Now, she had already jumped to the top of the list of popular young actresses. Now that Lethal Beauty was a hit, it also boosted her popularity. Therefore, most of the people in the crew were in awe of her. What surprised the staff even more was that although Yun Shishir came from a high family and became famous in the entertainment industry with a single movie, she didn't put on any airs and was more amiable to everyone. She was completely unlike those actresses who were exposed overnight and acted like a big shot because of their popularity and didn't put others in their eyes. Therefore, the staff liked to get along with her. They were very harmonious. However, Yun Shishir was more concerned about Ji Yan's mysterious identity. Rumors about Ji Yan were everywhere on the internet. Many netizens speculated that Ji Yan was Yan Bingqing, who had disappeared for a long time. Yan Bingqing disappeared from the public eye after the slapping scene in The Green Apple was exposed. After that, there was no news about her. Many people speculated that Yan Bingqing must have temporarily retired from the entertainment industry and later reappeared as a newcomer through plastic surgery to change her facial features. Her purpose was to cover up her dirty past. These were all the speculations of the netizens. However, when Yun Shishir got close to Ji Yan, she was surprised to find that there were many differences between Ji Yan and Yan Bingqing. Yan Bingqing was extremely high profile. Relying on her status as an A-list actress, she acted like a big shot, bullied the staff, and even dared to openly challenge the director. Ji Yan, on the other hand, got along with every staff member, was polite and gentle. Yun Shishir had seen Ji Yan greeting a cleaning lady with a smile. This was something that Yan Bingqing couldn't do. However, when Yun Shishir recalled the little bits of her interactions with Yan, she could always find similarities between her and Yan. A person's appearance could be changed, but a person's voice. When she smiled, Yun Shishir's voice Shishir, and Yun Shishir's voice Shishir's and Shishir's. There were several times when she was curious and wanted to find out the truth, but when she faced Ji Yan, she found her speculations to be laughable. What if it wasn't her? She questioned the real person after listening to the rumors on the internet. If the other party denied it, wouldn't the situation be very awkward? Maybe she deliberately made herself look like Yan Bingqing to gain popularity? So what if she's Yan Bingqing? Chapter 2566. Ji Yan was also very polite to her, and never made things difficult for her. Moreover, whether Ji Yan was Yan Bingqing or not, what did it have to do with her? All she needed to do was act. Hence, Yun Shishir did not take the matter to heart. On this day, after she finished filming, she was about to pack up and go home when Ji Yan suddenly pushed open the door of her dressing room, walked up to her and said with a smile, "Shishir, have you finished filming your scenes?" Yun Shishir turned to look at her and nodded gently. Yes. After a pause, she asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Is something the matter?" Ji Yan did not have many scenes with her when she was on set, so she did not deliberately get close to her and rarely spoke to her. Ji Yan said, "It may be a little presumptuous of me to say this, but it's my birthday today. Today is my birthday. Are you willing to attend my birthday party? I know you're in a hurry to go home, but I've already invited the whole crew. If I miss you, I'm afraid there will be gossip among the crew." Yun Shishir was speechless. "Well, in the production crew, sometimes the staff will talk behind my back. If you don't come to my birthday party, I'm worried that someone will spread the news that I don't get along with you. If the media catches wind of this, I don't know what kind of nonsense they'll write. If you're really in a hurry, you can go home early." Yun Shishir looked a little hesitant. Ji Yan's thoughtful words made it impossible for her to refuse. Indeed, if she did not show up, it was inevitable that someone with ulterior motives would make things difficult for her. Hence, she said softly, "I can attend, but your news came too suddenly. I didn't even know it's your birthday today, so I came empty-handed. I didn't even prepare a gift." "It's okay. Your presence is already the best gift I can give you." Ji Yan smiled, tilted her head and pouted. "I deliberately announced it at the last minute so that a bunch of people won't be in a hurry to prepare a gift and delay the filming. Actually, there's no need to prepare a gift. The crew has already ordered a cake. It's a party, so the more the merrier." Yun Shishir smiled. "Since you've said so, how can I refuse? What time is the party?" "We'll have to wait until the crew finishes filming today's episode." Ji Yan paused for a moment and thought for a while. Then she suddenly said, "How about you leave at 8? "Yes." Ji Yan was touched. "Thank you, Shishir. I didn't expect you to be willing to come to my birthday party." "What are you saying? Then you can arrange your own time first. I still have my scenes later, so I'll get to work first." Ji Yan bade her farewell and left. After she left the room, the smile on Yun Shishir's face gradually faded. Doesn't look like it. At such a close distance, she was completely different from the arrogant and spoiled Yan Bingqing in his impression. Perhaps she was overthinking things. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the party started on time at a bar near the photography studio. With the exception of Gu Xingze, all the crew members were present. Ji Yan was so generous that she booked the entire second floor. When everyone arrived, they were about to start the party, but Ji Yan suddenly stood up and said mysteriously, "Wait a minute, there are still some people who haven't arrived yet." Everyone was curious. "Who is it?" Chapter 2567. The director said, "Ji Yan, I forgot to tell you that Xingze will not be coming as soon as the shoot is over." "I know. I didn't expect him to show up anyway." Ji Yan smiled. "There's still a family member who hasn't arrived yet." "Family member? What family member?" Everyone looked at each other, then at the extremely ambiguous and shy expression on Ji Yan's face. All of a sudden, they understood what she meant by family members. "Oh, Ji Yan, you have a boyfriend. That's shocking news." The assistant director slapped his thigh pretentiously. "I didn't expect the beautiful Ji Yan to already be taken. Oh, it seems that I'm hopeless." Hua Jin suddenly leaned over to Yun Shishir's side and whispered, "Don't tell me he's her sugar daddy." Yun Shishir raised her eyelids and nudged him with her elbow. "Don't gossip. I'm just kidding," Hua Jin said, feeling wronged. "Shishir, you're so serious and boring. Can't she have a proper boyfriend? Why are you siding with her? Are you stupid?" Yun Shirshir cursed inwardly. It was just that she did not pay much attention to Ji Yan, and was not interested in her gossip. Hua Jin suddenly said, "Say, what kind of mentality do you think a man has when he's still with his woman when he knows that she's a sugar daddy?" Yun Shirshir said matter-of-factly, "Of course, he's obviously toying with her." Bingo! Hua Jin snapped his fingers. "I'm looking forward to seeing who Ji Yan's boyfriend is. We'll see it soon." Hua Jin was a little excited. "Let's wait and see." Yun Shirshir rubbed her forehead. When did this guy become so nosy? At 7:15 p.m. Ji Yan looked at the time and hurriedly walked to the side to make a phone call. Half a minute later, she came back excitedly and said shyly, "He said he's already at the entrance of the bar." Oh. Everyone cheered. One of the female celebrities teased, "Look at how excited Ji Yan is. Her face is all red. Ji Yan, you have to be merciful today. There are a lot of single dogs in the crew, so don't spread too much dog food. I've been eating too much dog food recently. I'm a little full." The crowd burst into laughter again. Ji Yan asked shyly, "What? Don't worry, I'll try not to show off my love today." "Yes, that's right." The director nodded. "Even if you want to show off your love, you have to wait until you enter the hotel." The crowd booed. "Director, don't be so explicit." "Exactly. Ji Yan will be shy." However, the director didn't think much of it. "We're all adults. There's no harm in speaking with a little color." Everyone laughed again. Amidst the laughter, someone suddenly shouted, "There's a man walking down the stairs. He's so handsome. Ji Yan, is that your boyfriend?" Ji Yan turned around at once, and when she saw who it was, she blushed and went up to greet him. Out of curiosity, Yun Shirshir also looked in the direction Ji Yan ran to, only to be stunned by what she saw. The man was dressed casually. Although it was not very formal, he had handsome facial features and a good temperament, giving him a unique demeanor. Chapter 2568. The reason why she was so surprised was that the man was none other than Gao Nan. Gao Nan, Xiao Shue's boyfriend. A question popped up in her mind. Did he break up with her? That can't be, right? Ever since Xiao Shue fell in love, she transformed from a careless girl into a shy woman. She was so immersed in love that she rarely pestered her like before. Even when they occasionally communicated on WeChat, it was all about Gao Nan. There was no doubt that Xiao Shue had fallen in love, which made Yun Shirshir feel a little complicated. She had tried to persuade her friend by beating around the bush and telling her to see a man's true colors and not give him her heart easily. Otherwise, she would be in great pain if she was betrayed. However, Xiao Shue complained about her and even spoke up for Gao Nan, praising him for being considerate and gentle, and being a good boyfriend that was hard to come by. Yun Shirshir could only give up, thinking that Gao Nan had toned down a lot after the class reunion. However, there was a saying that a dog could not change its spots. Some time ago, Xiao Shue chatted with her on WeChat about the progress of her relationship with Gao Nan. She shyly said that the two had met each other's parents and were satisfied with each other. If there were no accidents, they would hold their wedding next year. It would take more than 10 days. Now, Gao Nan is attending a private party as Ji Yan's boyfriend. What is Xiao Shue then? Don't tell me that he has already broken up with her? Judging from how intimate they are, the two must have been dating for some time. Then, has this guy betrayed Xiao Shue and cheated on her? With countless thoughts running through her mind, Yun Shirshir felt a little uneasy. She suddenly realized that this matter had become very tricky. She stared at Gao Nan in disbelief, hoping that it was just a coincidence. However, when Ji Yan ran to his side and held his arm intimately, Yun Shirshir could no longer sit still. She clenched her fists and breathed heavily. If not for her excellent self-control, she would have already stood up, rushed up and slapped Gao Nan's face. Hua Jin sensed that there was something wrong with her aura and looked at her suspiciously. "Shirshir, what's wrong with you?" Yun Shirshir didn't have time to respond to him. She immediately took out her phone. After thinking about it, she found Xiao Shue on WeChat and sent her a message. "How have you been? How are you and your boyfriend doing?" She did not go straight to the point and say that she had seen Gao Nan with another woman. After all, she needed to clarify their relationship first. What if they broke up? Hence, it was not strange for him to find a new lover. Xiao Shue didn't reply immediately. Yun Shirshir suddenly became nervous. Could it be that they really broke up? At this point, Ji Yan had already walked over with her boyfriend's arm. When they were in front of everyone, she introduced him with a smile. Chapter 2569. What does he take Xiao Shui for? Yun Shirshir could not help feeling furious. She raised her head and glared fiercely at Gao Nan. The latter also seemed to have sensed a sharp gaze coming from a certain corner. He could not help but look in the direction of the gaze. When he saw that it was her, his face was also stunned for a moment. He did not expect that she would also appear in such an occasion. His entire body was stunned. Hua Jin saw that Yun Shirshir's expression was a little off, so he immediately hugged her shoulders gently. Shirshir, what's wrong? Only then did Yun Shirshir realize that she could not show her emotions in front of everyone. Some things must be resolved in private. Hence, she immediately restrained her expression. Gao Nan stared at her intently and suddenly understood why she was angry at him. He curled his lips into a heartless smile and said to Ji Yan, Ji Yan, let's introduce everyone. Ji Yan immediately introduced everyone enthusiastically. When it came to Yun Shirshir, Ji Yan took Gao Nan's arm and walked to him. Gao Nan, this is Yun Shirshir. You should know her, right? Her role in The Green Apple created a phenomenon at the box office. Shirshir is also a big star now, isn't she? Gao Nan gave a fake smile and nodded slightly. Yes, I know her. I've even watched her movie. With Xiao Shui. Back then, when Xiao Shui pestered him to watch The Green Apple, he complained for a while. He did not like to watch melodramatic romance dramas, but he accompanied her to the cinema because he wanted to take care of her. He did not expect that it would be a movie starring Yun Shirshir. Shirshir. This is Gao Nan, my boyfriend. Yun Shirshir raised an eyebrow and tried to restrain her anger. So you're Ji Yan's boyfriend? You've been dating for 2 months? Yes, that's right. Ji Yan did not sense the strangeness in the conversation at all. She happily snuggled up to his shoulder and smiled. We met at a bar. Bar? What a great place to hunt for beauties. All of a sudden, Yun Shirshir felt a little breathless and her heart was a little stuffy. She glanced at Ji Yan and Gao Nan before gritting her teeth and smiling. I wish you all the best. Ji Yan, your boyfriend is very handsome. The noise of the bar muffled her angry gnashing of her teeth. All he heard was a blessing. Ji Yan blushed and said, Shirshir, thank you. From the beginning to the end, Gao Nan stared at her without batting an eyelid. Suddenly, a meaningful smile appeared on his face, and he turned his head away. Ji Yan then took his arm and introduced him to the rest of the crew one by one. After Gao Nan arrived, the party officially began. Ji Yan did not specifically introduce Gao Nan's noble identity, but everyone in the crew was perceptive enough to know that he came from a prestigious family just by looking at his extraordinary aura. As the party began, a few bottles of imported wine were opened. Accompanied by the loud music in the bar, the atmosphere suddenly reached its climax. Amidst the applause, Yun Shirshir vaguely sensed a pair of eyes on her. She looked up and happened to meet Gao Nan's scrutinizing gaze. Chapter 2570. Under the crowd's instigation, Yun Shirshir was dragged to play civ. She repeatedly refused, saying that she was allergic to alcohol, but the crowd did not buy it. You play, your assistant will drink on your behalf. She felt that she had been unjustly implicated, but due to the situation, she could only bite the bullet and accept it. She then pitifully told Yun Shirshir, Shirshir, you must take it easy. I can't hold my liquor well either. Hua Jin could not help but snicker. Yun Shirshir nodded. However, with Gao Nan around, she was not in the mood to play. Her mind was not on the game at all, and her thoughts were wandering. In one round, she caused her assistant to drink more than 3 glasses of wine and a few glasses of beer. The assistant's face turned red from drinking. She waved her hand and told her that she could not continue. If she drank any more, she would surely get drunk. Yun Shirshir's heart ached and she immediately said, I really don't know how to play. Why don't I not participate in your game? If I insist on playing, a dabbler like me will only spoil your fun. Only then did the crowd give up and stop forcing her to play. Gao Nan, on the other hand, displayed his extraordinary skills and alcohol tolerance in the game, which made everyone gasp in admiration. Yun Shirshir looked at him silently. Just then her phone vibrated. She took it out and saw that Xiao Shui had replied to her message. Very good. What's wrong? A few seconds later, she sent another message. Eh? You rarely ask about him, what's wrong? Looking at her friend's reply, Yun Shirshir gripped her phone tightly and looked at Gao Nan again. She saw that he seemed to have guessed who she was texting, for a smug and cold smile appeared on his face. In her eyes, such a smile was extremely detestable. Under her cold gaze, Ji Yan, who was beside Gao Nan, suddenly lost. After drinking a glass of wine, she threw herself into Gao Nan's arms and acted coquettishly. In front of her and everyone else, Gao Nan kissed her hard on the lips, but his gaze remained on her from beginning to end. It was like an arrogant show-off, but also a silent provocation. Yun Shirshir was so angry that her whole body stiffened. Hua Jin, who was also very sharp, immediately sensed the confusing atmosphere between the two. He glanced at her, only to see her glaring daggers at the man. He then looked at the man, who was also looking at her nonchalantly. He tugged at Yun Shirshir's sleeve and asked curiously, Shirshir, what's wrong? You know him? Not only know him. Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth in reply. Hua Jin was about to continue his questioning when Mushi, who was standing at the side, suddenly stood up and covered her mouth. Yun Shirshir's attention returned to her as she hurriedly stood up. Do you want to throw up? Mushi covered her mouth and did not speak, nodding her head with a disheveled expression. I'll take you to the bathroom. Yun Shirshir hugged her shoulder and led her to the washroom. Once they reached the washroom, Mushi rushed in. Yun Shirshir stood outside the door and did not enter. She had a hunch that the man would come looking for her, so she decided to wait outside the washroom. Sure enough, half a minute later, Gao Nan appeared behind her. I didn't expect to see you here today. How rare. His frivolous opening was very much in line with his style. Yun Shirshir turned around abruptly and glared at him. She sneered. Is Ji Yin really your girlfriend? It's as you've seen, he said airily. Without any hypocritical denial or superfluous explanation, he directly admitted the truth. B****. Chapter 2571. Yun Shirshir was agitated at once. Feeling indignant for her friend, she asked angrily, What about Xiao Shui then? Who does she think she is? Gao Nan spoke again, but this time it was an extremely cold word. Girlfriend. Yun Shirshir was stunned in disbelief when she heard that. Then she laughed in anger. Girlfriend. You're really something, Gao Nan. You have 2 girlfriends. Does Xiao Shui know about this? Oh, are you feeling indignant for her? Gao Nan raised a brow with a nonchalant look, as if this matter was not worth any surprise or doubt. Instead, it was a matter of course. Yun Shirshir continued. Xiao Shui is deeply in love with you. She's been immersed in her love with you all this while. So, is this how you repay her feelings? Gao Nan laughed. I'll marry her. What? Marrying her is the best way to repay her feelings. As he said that, his lips curled into a mocking smile. She doesn't know about this, but it doesn't matter even if she does. After a pause, he looked at her and asked, If you intend to tell her about this, I don't mind. I'm looking forward to seeing her expression when she learns about this. Hehe. It's quite interesting just thinking about it. B****. Yun Shirshir could not control her anger. She took a step forward and raised her hand at him. Gao Nan quickly grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. His other hand pinched her waist suggestively. Yun Shirshir struggled angrily, but she could not break free from his grip due to the difference in their physical strength. Why are you so angry? Gao Nan was puzzled. Those who don't know the situation will think that you're jealous of me. Shameless. Yun Shirshir struggled again and gritted her teeth. If you don't love her, why did you marry her? Marriage has nothing to do with love. Gao Nan recounted the truth expressionlessly. As long as my parents are satisfied, I can marry any woman, but no matter who she is, she has no right to interfere with my private life. Xiao Shui is no exception. Gao Nan, I want you to break up with her. Yun Shirshir ordered word by word. Why? Because I won't allow you to trample on her feelings. I won't allow you to let her down and play with her. The man chuckled as if mocking her naivety and sighed. Sisterly love is really deep. I'm almost touched by you. Let go. No. The man smiled wickedly. Look carefully. You're the one who threw yourself into my arms. You're really shameless. Well said. Instead, the man laughed and grabbed her chin to enjoy the anger on her face. Do you know how cute you look when you're angry? Especially the look in your eyes, it's so seductive. He enjoyed the anger on her face. Her pair of willowy eyebrows were furrowed into an extremely elegant angle due to her anger, exuding an indescribable sense of beauty. I'm warning you for the last time. Let go. Yun Shishir's expression was frosty. Gao Nan was suddenly attracted by the resplendent ring on her hand. He could not help but look over and was surprised to see a diamond ring on her ring finger. You're engaged. Chapter 2572. Yun Shishir glared at him without saying a word. Oh, I remember now. Didn't the Mu group issue an announcement some time ago? Mu Yaja was banished by the Mu family, and his position was taken over by someone else. Hee. Yun Shishir. Has your dream of marrying into a wealthy family been completely shattered? Gao Nan usually did not pay attention to the happenings in the business world, but he was aware that Mu Yanqing had taken over the CEO's position. Hence, he was gloating over the latter's misfortune. Mu Yaja was such a proud man, but after this incident, he suddenly fell from the top to the bottom. He was probably smashed to pieces. He did not expect to meet him again at such an occasion. Gao Nan felt that this was probably a godsend. He had been coveting this woman for a long time, and had always wanted to befriend her. However, his uncle had previously warned him that the Mu family was a very scary existence, and that he should not have any thoughts about Mu Yaja's woman. Therefore, he restrained his ambition and didn't place too much hope on her. However, now that Mu Yaja had lost his power, this was probably the best opportunity, right? Hence, when he was sizing her up at the party earlier, he was silently thinking about how to make his move. Even though he was hugging and kissing another woman, at that time, only he knew in his heart what he really wanted. What was his ambition? Gao Nan was a standard hedonistic son. He was indifferent to his career, but he was an insufferably arrogant prodigal when it came to love. Whenever he fancied a woman, he would pounce on her like a cheetah and make her his. Almost no woman could escape from his clutches. Yun Shishir was the first exception. However, this exception did not make him wait for too long. Was this not an opportunity? Seeing the prey he had coveted for so long throwing herself into his arms, he was extremely pleased. Gao Nan suddenly approached her. His gaze landed on her delicate and alluring lips, and the ambition in his eyes could no longer be concealed. Yun Shishir felt disgusted at the sight of him and tried to resist, but his grip was so strong that she could not break free at all. Let go. Yun Shishir, you can't run away. Mu Yaja has lost his power, so it's my turn to take over. The man's eyes were as ferocious as a wild beast's. I want you. Don't even think about it. Yun Shishir sneered. I will tell Xiao Shui about your evil deeds. I'll make her open her eyes and see that you're a complete bastard. Okay, let's wait and see. Anyway, I'm already tired of her. If it weren't for her fantasizing about marrying me all day long, do you think I would want to marry her? You. Yun Shishir fumed. Gao Nan, don't go too far. How can you bear to hurt Xiao Shui? Since you don't love her, then please don't hurt her. This is the first time Xiao Shui has fallen into such a deep relationship. You bastard, you will suffer retribution. Haha, retribution. You're so naive to believe in retribution though. Yun Shishir, you're too naive. Then, I'll have to trouble you to quickly get her to leave me and stop pestering me. Otherwise, I'll be troubled too. Do you really think I like her? I'm just playing around. Who would like a chaste woman? What do you mean?